Hello once again, audience. We're back. It's been some time. What's up? We are back with the podcast.
The podcast ever.
The podcast ever. Okay. And so this week, it's been so long since we've seen you guys. A week's time is too long. I yearn for your affection toward my
Whoa.
spiels.
Pause.
I yearn for your gazing eyes and ears, your gazing eyes and your attentive ears, your open holes for me, that you receive me through. Okay, so what's up?
Wow.
What's up? Saint Theodosius Gregorinus.
Nah, it's
Gregorianus
Theodosius Gregorianus.
the third.
Shit, what was it? No, what's the word for it? There's a word for it.
Change it to Jock Berman Webster the third.
Who the hell is that?
That's Travis Scott. Jock
Is
Berman
it Jock
Webster.
or Jacques?
Well, Jock Berman Webster, whatever. Or you could change it to Quavius. Quavo, What's up, guys? How you been? How's your week been? What have you guys been up to? What are you up to? What are you up to, Greg?
So I went to our usual what's it called? Mecca of nourishment. Yeah.
Of nourishment. Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you're talking about endless food.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Just this recently, and I made a point of like going above what I thought was enough.
But what kind of food are we talking here?
We're talking. Yeah, I forgot. We gotta give some context here. We're talking about food from the great, may or maybe not axis-aligned islands of the East.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what food from them?
Well, the menu's quite large, but obviously, me being a animal-based bro, there's only a few good options. So I stick to my Alaska roll, which is, the rice, the seaweed, the salmon, the avocado. I think that's it. And then various cuts of steak, either what they call the New York strip, which is chopped up into tiny little pieces, or the Mongolian beef. Yeah, that's the one, which is lathered in a sweet sauce, which probably is haram, but whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't even know what cut you'd call that. I think it's like short rib or something like that.
Now, unfortunately, the Alaska roll is lacking in saturated fat, but
it's got the monounsaturated, which is it's better than not.
A little bit of PUFA from the salmon.
Yeah. I did also just get rice too, so that didn't help my ability to keep going.
Rice is good.
Yeah, but it was like, it was
I saw
clearly in some sauce.
I saw this carnivore guy post on Twitter saying like he was linking white rice to diabetes because he was showing like people in Asian countries, like their amount of diabetes was increasing. But it's like, bro, what have they been using in their diets as of late compared to, the white rice, which has been a staple for ages? It's almost as if there's some other oils that are being introduced that's causing diabetes. But, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the expert here.
To be fair, from what I've recalled, they've kind of always used haram oils.
But for how long?
That's a good question. But I mean, I know like a lot of recipes that are older, they use a lot of sesame oil and stuff like that. But usually if they're not doing that, they're usually using, at least in Japan, I think they do use butter on occasion. And a lot of those countries use a lot of lard traditionally. Yeah. But nowadays, I imagine that's not as popular.
See, that's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying, if you're looking for a link of what it could be, I'm just saying what it makes more sense to say is the problem is not the rice.
I love how people they don't take 2 seconds to think about like a correlation at all. Well, bro, it's got to be the white rice, even though they've been eating it for literally millennia.
Yeah.
What?
They just should have been carnivore this whole time, and that would have never happened.
I mean, they should have been kind of, well, I don't know. Not carnivore, but they should have been emphasizing more meat.
Yeah.
Pause. But, I mean...
I just had cow tongue last night.
When I went to that one place in that other city that I went to that was like the you cook your own stuff, they had cow tongue, and I got it. It was pretty good.
I got it from Walmart, and I slow cooked it. And I peeled it. I peeled that skin off. And that skin is like tongue skin, bro.
Are you not supposed to eat the skin?
I don't think so. It was very thick. It's honestly, it would be extremely unappetizing.
Was it like moist and whatnot?
It was when I opened it, but not when I cooked it. It became like this hide material, like this hide feeling thing that you could just like rip straight off. It was, you know, of like how like tongues have like receptors and like, all those like, I mean, especially like animal tongues have a little bit like different when it comes to what the texture is like. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much just straight out of the cow's mouth. I mean, you could tell exactly what it is without even thinking, but it's very not appetizing to eat that. But the meat itself was good. I mean, it's very gelatinous. It's nice.
That's not how it tasted for me. They must have cut it differently.
I just cooked it in broth, and that was it. I slow cooked it, so that might have been it.
Oh, yeah. I got it as like discs almost, and then I threw them on the grill.
I see. I did see that online when I was looking it up, but I did not do that. I let the meat fall apart. Pause. So what's up? Me personally, I went out on an excursion. I was telling Gregory about this. When you hear about free drinks till midnight, right? What comes to mind? It's like free drinks till midnight, right? So I'm like, okay, sure. My friend's like, hey man, you got to check this out. You got to go. I'm like, okay, whatever. The night before was actually a Latin night, but we didn't go that night. We went the night after. And you go in there. There's more urban music playing, as I told you. And what I told him when we got there, I was like, man, what is with all this, music, right? And he was like, oh man, yeah, I mean, that's just what they play around here. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not really feeling this, I don't know how good this is. And then he's like, yeah. And then I'm like, it's like tribal. And then he's like, bro, I'm like, what? He's like, you went there. And I'm like, what? He's like, Africa, like slavery. Bro, you went there.
Is this who I think it is?
Yes, he was the guy that goes, bro. Yeah, it was him. It was him. And so it was kind of funny. But I was saying the N-word a little bit loud, and he was getting freaked out about it. He's like, yo, bro,
whoa, why would you admit that?
I'm just saying, it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it just happens.
It just happens.
It happens. You start drinking a little bit, you get a little more liberal with it, What can I say?
More conservative, I think you mean.
No, a little more liberal. Liberals are the real racists.
That's true.
So the thing is here, that happened. There was also like this security guy next to us. He was like this big dude. I'm like, I'm like saying to the guy next to me, this guy, I'm saying like, what do you think he would do to us if I told him you wanted to kiss him?
How tall was he?
He was tall. He was tall, dude. He was over 6 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was buff. So I was like, what do you think he would do? He's like, you beat our asses.
Did he look like he was using though?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that.
Be. I mean, he had to be.
The roid
this guy
rage.
this guy would rip your head apart. Yeah, no joke. I wonder if that's what they have to do for security gigs. Like they'd say, like, are you on steroids? It's like, no. Okay, sorry, sir. We're gonna look for other candidates. I mean, it just seems like you're not the best fit. A guy comes in, he's just good job, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the guy.
Was he black?
Immediately. No, this guy was actually white. No, I think there was a black security guy though. Usually the black security guys are the ones, right? I mean, it's just the muscles at that point. But obviously, like, I'm just saying intimidation wise, who do you think you'd be a little more frightened by, intimidated by? Who do you think you would feel a little bit more is, prone to get, physical if need be? I'm just saying.
That's a very loaded question. I think based on our society and its presuppositions of what people act like according to their race, not me in particular, I don't agree with this, but I think most people would maybe be a little more intimidated by the larger gentleman of darker complexion.
I blame society. Society's racist, and therefore, they're perpetuating a stereotype, but it's working as far as their needs go, as far as security, This outdated stereotype still works.
That doesn't mean it's true, though. It
just means it still works because people have an outdated mindset. Right. Everybody's mindset is outdated except for mine. I'm in date. I'm ahead.
It's 2024.
Yeah, they're gonna be looking at me in 2034 and saying, "Man, that guy, he was spitting facts back then."
Is that what people think? Is that like the actual thought process that goes through their mind when they do that shit?
People look back in history and know that we were the real heroes. We were the
Yeah.
real good guys.
Now, question is that because there's a not so subtle framing of history, or is that because they would genuinely be like, oh no, he was the right guy?
Yeah, because, as time goes on, everybody becomes more progressive. So it's like, eventually, if you just become progressive enough, people will look at you and say, man, he was progressive for his time, the thing is, though, I remember seeing like when George Floyd, the whole thing happened, there was this guy posting on his Snapchat story talking about like how an avatar, like, I don't know if he was talking about the Last Airbender or what, maybe the other one, maybe the blue people. I'm not sure. He said, an avatar, when there were the bad guys and like, nobody stood up to them, or I think it probably was just the cartoon. And it's like, and you guys think like you would be on the good guys side. No, I don't see any of you guys like standing up for what's right now. I'm the one that's standing up for what's right. This protesting and stuff, you got to be on the right side. So, I mean, it's kind of that same mindset of like, well, you got to be on George Floyd's side, and not even just say like what happened to him was wrong. You need to be actively out there, like, fighting for, whatever, fighting
Breaking
for
social distancing,
fighting for free televisions. And,
this is what he would have wanted.
Yeah. Well,
he would have wanted me to steal a TV.
Yeah. There could be breads in those TVs.
That's true.
Yeah. But anyway, point being, we were at this place. One thing I noticed while we were there was this guy who he was bald, right? And I didn't even notice him at first, but my friend's like, yo, bro, look at that guy over there. He's so old. And, this is like a college kind of bar thing. But you look at this guy. He was old. I mean, he looks like, Nima?
Yeah.
Bro, he looks like that guy. He looks exactly like him. Bro, it was like 1 for 1. Like, it could have been him, honestly.
You have the nose?
Bro, I mean, he looked pretty similar. I'm just saying, but the thing is, like, he was standing at the bar. Okay, so he was there and he's like, yo, he's so old. So I didn't think much of it. But then he like goes to this, like, well, I guess he goes to the other side first. And then eventually he just starts walking over to this like dartboard that nobody's at anymore. And it's like in the corner. And I just keep looking over every few minutes and he's still there. And he's not even moving. Like, he's just standing there with the one drink. He's looking around. And my friend's like, yo, bro, he's looking for his prey. He's a predator.
Yo.
I'm just looking every 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, probably every couple minutes. I start looking over to him and I keep telling my friend, yo, why is he still there? Why is he still there? He's not moved. And he's like, bro, stop looking at him. And I told him, do you think I should go talk to him, see what's up? Maybe get his advice. He's an older guy, maybe he has some game for us. It's like, bro, we are not going to get any baddies if you talk to him. He was so concerned that if I had talked to this bald guy that like women would be looking over. And then if we were to try approach women, it would like fail because they had already associated with us with this like bald guy.
You're like erased from their mind as soon as you talk to a bald guy.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was okay to interact with weird people. It makes you more charismatic, no?
No, if anything, I think it would be the opposite.
Really? So it makes you less charismatic to interact with anybody weird. Even if you're the one that's not presenting yourself as weird, by association, you become like more repulsive?
No, I meant like I was
like
agreeing
your social status is lowered? Oh, no, you're agreeing with me.
Yeah.
I was going to say like maybe like, there's some sort of like infection socially that it's like you're associated with that person now. So you get the same vibe that person has. It depends on how weird the person is.
Yeah.
Like if it's like quirky weird and you associate with that person, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's fun. He just likes seeing where the fun's at. But if it's like somebody that's like actually creepy, then it's not good.
It's like, why are you hanging out with this guy?
Right. It's like, well, why is my friend calling me? I told this guy I'll talk to you later, and here he is just calling me on the phone.
The bro guy?
No, a different guy. This guy. Oh. I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm just going to wait on that. I'll call him back later. But, I was looking at something and then I see a call from him. I'm like, I had just talked to him for like an hour. I don't know what's up. But anyway, I was here I was at that place. And the thing is like, basically, they said free drinks till midnight, but like I got like probably like 6 at this point of the rum pineapple. But the thing is like 11:30 hits and this guy's like, I asked him for one. He's like, that'll be $2. He's like, is that cash or card? I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, that's it. I'm like, what? And then he's like, Yeah, so they're going to be cash or card. I'm like, it says on the Instagram, and he's like, well, it's not my problem or something. I don't even know exactly what he said, but it sounded like he said that. But then I showed him the Instagram, and it sounded like what my friend got from it. I couldn't tell what he was saying, but he said like, ask the main bartender or something like that. Like, it's not me that does that or something. But I don't know what. So they're just cutting it off early. They can just tell him, hey man, no more. Like what? Was there not enough people coming in or what? Because I mean, it's not like it was like empty. There was a decent amount of people. It's just not like it was packed. And it was all, to be fair, I mean, not to be fair to them, but I'm just saying to be fair as far as the actual amount of people in there, there it was not packed for what midnight should be on like a Friday.
Did you go to a different bar like within the place?
No, it was the same guy the whole time.
Damn. He screwed you over.
Yeah.
You built a bond with that guy. And then he just said, without even explaining too, you had to beg for an explanation. You got like a half-assed one. And he was just like, $2.
He turned on me.
Did they do the thing with the cups at least? Like where you get a bigger cup if you pay for it?
It was the same size.
Were they smaller cups to begin with?
No, they were like medium.
Damn, I need to go there.
Yeah, well, it was pretty nice actually. It takes you a while to finish those. It's not like the little ones, but yeah, it's like, and it was only a couple bucks. Yeah, that too. That actually is a good price. But yeah, I don't know. He had his loyalty where it was at. I thought we had built something. I thought what we had was special, but he said no. My loyalty is to this place. To the managers and to whatever. So he betrayed us. There's this other guy who was there. We tried getting drinks from him first, but he just didn't get to us, and like he was just going for the girls. And also, I mean, I guess they were like buying stuff, but still, like, point being, like that guy, like the first time we were there, like he was there working for like maybe a half hour or less. And like, he was working at first, but then he just starts like hanging out with people. He like leaves the bar. He just starts hanging out with people. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, does this guy work here or what? And I mean, but this time he actually was behind the bar the whole time.
Oh, you're saying the last time you went there?
Yeah.
Okay. I was confused for a second. So wait, maybe he didn't work there at first, and then he did work there. I don't know.
What? No, I mean I don't know. Maybe
he was like just doing a test run, and then they're like, "Wow, we like the way you did that.
Really?
Would you like to come on for like I don't know? I'm not fucking them."
I'm taking it as if you know what's going on here.
We're building a team.
Yeah.
So this experience is generally a positive one, no?
Well, it was until that thing happened, and then I mean, my friend still got me one more. He's like, yeah, it's just on me. It's on me. And then, but then we left.
Does this change your perception of your earlier statements on this area in terms of that kind of stuff?
Well, this was never really my favorite area as far as, everything that goes on there. But, that specific place, it kind of diminished the quality of it, I mean, if anything, it wasn't great, like compared to other places I've been. Like, it's not like the best, but it's not like the worst. But, if anything, the last time I went was probably better than this time. Just because of that. I think I'm just letting that, say a lot about my experience.
Oh, I mean, $2 is still a great price, but it's still not.
No, I felt betrayed by the false advertising. It was more about that.
Your heart and just smash into a million pieces right in front of you.
I'm a very principled person, and so somebody doesn't stay up on their word as far as that. If you don't stick to your word, I get upset. I'm like, well, what is this? What are you, a scammer?
You should have asked him. Maybe he would have been honest and be like, yeah.
Hello, tech support. Should have like screamed in Indian.
There's no free drinks. It's over.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, anyway, that kind of lasted until that point. I did just switch places after that for like a brief time, and yeah, I did get loaded though at that place, honestly, because I only had one more after I left.
You went to another place after that?
Yeah, one more just for the night.
Was it better or worse?
Well, it was a different kind of thing. Like, it was free to get in, and it was just like live band stuff playing, but then they have like a bar area.
So it was like a bar proper.
Kind of, but it was like downstairs, You like walk down into it. From
the same place?
No, it's like a different area. It was like a little drive, like 15, 20 minutes away. Now, the thing is, I was already well loaded, I feel, before I even got there, because on it. And honestly, when I went to bed that night, I was very uncomfortable.
From
my stomach.
Oh, you didn't take the cream beforehand?
I had a lot of like milk and raw cheese and like orange peels and stuff like that. So, and I had dates and coconut water with me. So, I mean, I helped myself. It's just, it was too much, I took too much advantage of that free stuff.
I mean, it's free. So, I mean,
I know.
Is it really too much?
Well, it's like you go in and you drink their whole supply, but then you like throw it up after. Did you really gain something from that, or did you just take from them?
Well, yes, because you got in the state that you were trying to get into.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right, because I did, so I guess, well, I mean, you got to think about the next day. Though, it's not as bad as it used to be, honestly, because, this is an interesting thing I was thinking about. It's like, people say like, oh, I used to be able to handle all this liquor like back when I was young. And like, this might be something I mentioned before, but it's like, it's literally the PUFAs doing this to you. It's like, because and also just like probably like, grain versus non-grain alcohol. Because like the thing is here is like, people can actually go all night just fine, if you're healthy. You know what I mean? Like in Europe, they do it and they're okay.
Yeah, they do it a lot.
And so they're a lot better off than they are here. So obviously it has something to do with the actual like health, of yourself to be able to do something like that. Like it says a lot more about the health state of people here that they're always like that, And something interesting kind of tied to that is I was talking to my friend beforehand because he was asking like, he was actually calling me beforehand. What was it? I think because like last time he said he had a shirt for me. And then I'm like, I don't think that's going to fit because he's smaller than me. But because I mean, I've worn like mediums too and felt pretty comfortable in them. But like I don't know, he's a smaller guy. So I feel like his mediums are probably smaller. Like he goes to places like where they're more tightly fitting because usually mediums vary. But his point was like, he's like, yeah, he was telling me I've gotten bigger over the like bulkier. Like bulkier, pause. I've gotten like my body, my frame has gotten bulkier over the past like year. And so, I was telling him like, yeah, well, he's like, what have you been eating? And I told him what I've been eating. And he's like, oh yeah, it's like all that meat and cheese and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but, cause he was impressed by the weight gain, it's not like it's as if like, I'm like fat or something, but it's like, I've gained weight without presenting myself as somebody like way bigger. So it's like I've gained mass as Mac would put it, except for I didn't become obese. Point being here, I think it was like the other day he was telling me, he was like, what are your goals like fitness wise? And he's like, oh, are you trying to bulk? And then like you're trying to cut. And I'm like, I don't really like do that kind of stuff. I just want to get my metabolism right. And so then he asked me like, what do you mean by that? And so I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? What do I mean by that? I'm trying to be metabolically healthy rather than focus on a necessary, like, like be this exact weight or like, have this exact amount of body fat. Like over time, it would like deplete just because I'm eating less polyunsaturated fats. And, the thing is like, cause my metabolism would just be better. The thyroid function would be better. But, to him, like, I feel like the what in his mind almost might have been like this thing where like people just believe that you're born either with a good or a bad metabolism. And like some people just have it better. And like, over time they just start to lose it because of age and that's it. Like, and then once you're older, it's just, that's when it diminishes for some people. So like, it's just all this thing about like, it's just determined from birth. There's nothing you could do about it. There's no health things that you could, like really all you're doing when you're eating right is just trying to lose the weight. You're not actually trying to make yourself healthier. Being healthy is just being skinnier, I guess, that is it. There's nothing else to it. So they have a very like, I guess, you would put it as one-dimensional view, of health and metabolism. So when you tell them I want to be metabolically healthy, they get confused at what you even mean by that.
Yeah. And it's not even really that hard of a concept to understand, really. It's just you want to be eating something that's not going to like screw up the way your body processes food in a way where it's going to negatively impact your body. That's really it.
Right.
I mean, to simplify, I mean, it can get complicated, but like, it's not like you just gave them like, well, I want to make sure that like you didn't go into like the full jargon or anything.
I didn't even mention thyroid.
Yeah.
I want my thyroid to be healthier. I'd understand if you started asking about that. I feel like that would be a more frequent question. But to say metabolically healthy, and he's like, what do you mean? It's just, at some point you get stumped by like, how is this possible? And I'm not trying to say like, everybody should know it because they should have learned this back in school or something. But it's just a question of like, people want to make all these comments on health, but then they don't even know these things. It's like, wait, like, that says a lot more about, I mean, we've talked about where they're getting their information from, and they're just getting it from like directly from the studies and just saying like, just repeating the results. Basically any study that's like peer reviewed, viewed as like correct by academia, then they're just kind of like, oh yeah, well this says this, so that's it. So we've talked about that, but basically here is like, it's not even that they like, it is part of the reasoning skills and like logical thought, but at the same time, it's like, they don't even have the information itself. Like they're lacking in the actual knowledge because they're just kind of going with like statements, like taken as axioms or taken as like just truth statements, rather than actually knowing any information beyond it or behind it. Like they can't really dig back any further. All they can really say is, well, this study says this, therefore that is the case. It's not even reasoning behind it.
And there's so many factors that go into that just on that alone. Okay, what study is it? What is it actually measuring? What are the results? What is the actual setup for it? Is it controlled? Is it not controlled? Who's funding it? Why are they funding it? What is the actual outcome? Do they give an actual conclusion? Like nobody ever thinks about these things. They just pull up an article offline or whatever, and they're just like, see, look, it says this. Does it? Does it actually say that? Or did you just kind of jump to that conclusion? Is it even measuring what you think it's measuring? Is it funded by someone that you actually consider trustworthy?
Yeah.
Why do you consider them trustworthy? If so, like,
and could there be other factors at play which are being ignored and sort of just like, there's a causation drawn from a correlation, without there even being really substantial reason to do so.
Right. This reminds me, yesterday when I was hanging out with my other group of boys, the boys, we're going to the good old Mecca of nutrition, as I just called it earlier in this episode, or Mecca of nourishment, whatever. Anyway, we were waiting because it's a Saturday. It's damn, I leaked our recording day. It's so over, bro. So we're sitting around because it's like busy, and we had like to put our name down and wait or whatever. And my one buddy's like, "Damn, bro," because his hair is a bit thinning. And he's like, "Damn, bro, I gotta like do something with my hair." And I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean, like styling or what?" No, I mean like, it's a bit thin, and I want to make sure that it doesn't get any worse. And I'm like, "Well, if you really want to, you should." I give him like the typical spiel we give to like everybody that has this issue, because a lot of people we seem to know have this thing going on, like the other guy we know.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, things that cause it are obviously stress, exposure to seed oils, not getting enough sunlight. What was the other
and also
one?
vitamin deficiency.
Yeah, vitamin
which can
deficiency,
be caused by things like, I know Saladino even mentioned like curcumin is something that like would, consuming that is something that is actually a problem. Whereas people are like, oh, you should actually be eating more of it. Like there's so much nutritional value. No, it's actually causing you to not absorb as many vitamins and, which could lead to the actual baldness.
What is curcumin?
It's like turmeric. I don't know that there's a difference between the two. I think they're just called that.
Is it like the Arab spice?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might explain a lot, actually.
Well, I mean, there's like the Arab spice like cumin, but then there's like curcumin. So yeah, chemical compound,
spices,
yellow orange colored pigment, and active principle of turmeric or
this
curcuma.
Stuff looks like ginger.
So it's basically like the compound in turmeric, rather than being like necessarily turmeric itself, I guess.
But I imagine you can't really.
It's of turmeric. It's of turmeric.
Yeah. It comes with curcuma.
It comes with curcumin.
But yeah, so I was telling him this, and I was like, well, if you want to avoid it, you want to increase your saturated fats, you want to eat more red meat, you want to be out in the sun more, you want to like limit the amount of the blue light. I thought you. Shit, I feel like we talked about this before, but
yeah, because you were saying like, shouldn't you raise estrogen? But the thing is,
not raise the estrogen. You want to get it so that the blood that is converting into DHT doesn't convert into DHT, and I think it's supposed to convert into estrogen, which stimulates hair growth as opposed to hindering it. So it's not like you want to up your estrogen necessarily. You want to alter the process in which the chemicals in your blood turn into DHT.
So, I mean, even Saladino is doubting that DHT is the cause of it. But the thing is, like, testosterone actually is like causing like the production of like hair growth. I mean, because like, men actually do have a lot more hair growth like on all parts of the body. And that is like,
the chest,
a product of testosterone.
So
that is a product of testosterone. But the thing is, like, I mean, I would say like with excess estrogen, I mean, that is putting the body like, I guess it is more reflective of being in a more like stressful state. So I don't necessarily know that the estrogen itself would be responsible. I know like, the cortisol obviously would, but I mean, I guess, like it is kind of tied that like if you're high cortisol, you probably do have high estrogen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I guess I don't know that necessarily estrogen would be the cause. It's just all I'm saying is like, I have doubts that DHT actually is responsible for such a thing. So really just, I mean, for guys, like I would say like, less estrogen because, you want to have like less of the hormones associated with being in a stressful state.
Yeah. But either way, I was telling him this. I was basically giving him the right prescription, regardless of what the processes were.
Right.
And they were like, he was like kind of like on the fence about it. And the other guys were like, nah, you're just kind of born with it. You're kind of screwed. So I was like, at that point, I was like, all right, I don't really feel like arguing about this. So yeah, okay, you're fucked. Don't do anything about it. Like, there's only so much I can do if you don't want help. So
right. You can try giving the information, but not everybody's going to follow. And yeah, I mean, even so, it's like the problem is not even that they're just not like like accepting what you're saying is truth. The problem is that they're just going back to the default settings of like, oh, well, these guys are probably right anyway. I've heard enough that like it's genetic, so it probably just is.
Have they though? They it's kind of just asserted it's genetics.
You've heard it enough. You've heard it enough. You haven't heard why. You haven't heard that it is like, that it actually is. And the reasoning, it's just, you've heard it. So therefore it's like, well, I mean, if I've been told that enough, it might as well be true.
It doesn't even hurt to try it though. That's what really gets me.
Yeah. It's like, how are you harming yourself by trying these things? Like these could turn things around for you. I mean, they will, but they very well could. So it's like, if what you're doing already is not conducive to, the hair growth, why wouldn't you just look for solutions and listen out, or hear out to what people have to tell you as far as, what could be the solution to the problem? Look into it more if you need to. I mean, like, you don't have to just start doing it, but like, look into whether there's reasoning behind this or not. And then, maybe if you try it, experiment a little bit, you could actually see better results with that.
Yeah. My thing is always like, in like all the things that I do for the most part that I actually give a shit about, whenever something's not working, I usually research it, and then by process of elimination, I try what I hear works, and then if that doesn't work, I go to the next thing, and if that doesn't work, I go to the next thing. Then I combine the two things. See what, like, it's a process of like, it's basically like a scientific method at that point. I don't know why people just kind of turn that off for certain things. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just like, well, there's a possibility this is right, or even if you don't think it's right, it's like, well, let me see what happens if I actually just look into it, even at surface level. But no. I'll just take my easy answer that I can't do anything about it, because that gives me, it doesn't even really give you comfort. It just like, I guess it's just they don't want to put the effort in. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and also it's, it's kind of an unsafe feeling, I suppose, because you've been, this far in your life, I'm just saying for the people that really haven't had this mindset of like, I guess like, they're not active minded, you know what I mean? And so basically like, they're just seeing things from a perspective.
You're calling them
like,
NPCs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when I say that, I'm just saying like, how people say like, they're open-minded, but that just really means it's like, oh, whatever I hear, I kind of just like, either whatever I hear, I take as truth or whatever, without really considering much further, just because it feels right. Or like, whatever it may be, but that's generally what it is. Or like, they're saying, oh, well, you're either that or closed-minded. So obviously you either accept nothing or just accept everything, really. But no, you really just have to be taking into consideration and seeing like, testing that with your actual like understanding of the world. And then, just seeing what seems more logical, when compared to reality itself. So, I mean, if you can't do that, well, then it's going to be a little hard for you to actually accept, anything that you're being told, or really just even, debate whether it could be the case. I mean, because the guy, I don't know, he probably would just, I don't know if it was just going one in one ear and out the other. It probably was because of that.
Probably.
Yeah. Unfortunately, NPC. I mean, too long didn't read NPC.
Digesting it for the NPC so they understand what we're talking about regarding NPCs.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever meet people, because I mentioned this to you with some other group that we were.
I have met people.
I'm just saying we knew this group. You know, like honestly, like for those people, I feel like they just kind of go into autopilot when you stop seeing them. You know, like there's a moment when you're interacting with them, like you bring them into reality by talking to them, and so like therefore, like you know, their minds are actually getting kind of stimulated. But as soon as you leave, then they just kind of go back, like you know, they lose consciousness. You know, have you
Dude.
you know about how I don't know necessarily what the hypothetical is, but it's like you know you give something consciousness and then you just like rip it away again. Like maybe like an animal or something, or like an inanimate object. Exactly like that, bro. Exactly like that.
It's so funny, and I'm sure you remember this. Like whenever somebody says something and they just kind of expect everybody to be like a muppet and agree, but then you ask a question about like, well, is this true? Or well, why do you think that? Then it's like, wait, what? Well, what do you mean? It's true. I've been told it's true. And then like,
Yeah.
you know, the one guy, you know, we've been kind of giving him a little bit of a rough time in our mentions, even though we never mentioned him by name. But the one guy that we know that it's kind of like a walking dictionary or well, some kind of book of expansive knowledge. He's walking one of those. He'll like bring up the actual reasons why he understands the issue in particular about whatever it is. And I mean, obviously he's limited because he's not really into like abstract concepts like that. But like in terms of like military stuff and stuff like that, whenever there's any like argument about that, he'll break down like a fucking book basically as why this is the case. Whereas everybody else is just like, well, this person that I like said this, so therefore it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It is really hilarious though. I was actually talking with those guys yesterday about it too. How many people just kind of don't fucking think about anything.
Mm-hmm. What do you think goes through those people's minds? I think we talked a little bit about this before. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this before when we're kind of like, how do you not put yourself at the center of your own like world? Like, how are you not the one in your own mind that is acting for yourself? Like, rather than saying like, I'll do things for others. Or like primarily for others rather than for yourself, which, you know, we kind of concluded that might not really even be kind of like doable. Even though some people could probably trick themselves into getting to somewhat of a similar mental state, like, you know, as far as how they're actually acting, but you know, like reasoning wise, it doesn't really get to that point for most people, unless you're from like North Korea or something. But point being is like, you know, what, like we're saying nothing goes through their minds, but like, seriously, like what are the thought processes? Like, you know, does this have to do with the inner monologue, or is this, you know, actually, yeah, yeah. Does this have to do with the inner monologue? Is it like, you know, if you have the inner monologue, then you actually think like us, but if you don't, then you think like those people? Or I guess to say lack of thinking like those people.
On the inner monologue thing, you were in that one server I'm in where the one person said, or I don't know if you saw it though, but the one person that we know, the one girl that has her server or whatever, she was saying on the inner monologue thing that, yeah. What helped?
The recent one that we went into, you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. She was saying on that topic that you would have to have an inner monologue by simply effect of being a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But like you'll see all these like things on Twitter, and I mean it's possible that they're all just like trolling, but I don't know. It didn't seem like it when they're like, wait a minute, you guys have an inner monologue or something like that? You guys can hear your voice in your head? What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah. Do you think like it's like a literal product of denying reason?
I mean, that's the only way I could see it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like, you know, like that thing, like it's a meme. I think it's like a 4chan kind of like Wojak meme where it's like you believe you're the main character of your own story, basically, and everybody else is just an NPC put in place for you. Like, that's obviously false, but if you're a normal adjusted person, that at least kind of makes sense given your perspective. But I don't think that goes through the head of everybody, like at all. Like most people, I wouldn't say so. The other thing that we were talking about a while ago was like the idea of being able to like visualize objects in your head that you're not actually visualizing physically. Like people are having a problem.
This apple.
Yeah. Wait, and I think our one buddy said something like it was based off of certain biological traits that you can't control.
You mean like being black?
Actually, no. Surprisingly,
more you mean like being a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one makes more sense.
I think we were talking to that
Look,
one.
I'm not a racist, but when it comes to like men versus women, then that's a different story.
I think we were talking to that one woman. It feels weird calling her a woman, but yeah, her about that, and she got upset about it, even though she kind of has the thought processes of like.
I mean, that was
NPC.
That was sporadic.
What?
That behavior.
Oh, like you mean like it wasn't? There was no pattern for it beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird.
Like it didn't. I wouldn't think of her to be somebody like that. You know what I mean?
A feminist?
No, I'm saying like like going like okay. I'm saying like because there was a bunch of messages sent, like over and over and over after like I gave like a simple argument. It's like a bunch like a thread of like single sentence or single like few words of like just giving example after example. Not even like to say like, oh well I mean think about this, think about that. It was more so like, well, you think that, I mean like how about this, like what are you talking about, blah, blah, blah. It's like just going kind of a little crazy about it.
Go crazy, go stupid. Yeah, that was funny though. That was a really entertaining exchange.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was, but predictable a little bit as far as some of the answers I was given. It's not like I've never heard those arguments before.
Straw man after straw man.
Yes,
I've noticed that's like a lot of. I don't even think people do it on like purpose anymore. I think it might just be a product of the NPC mind. Like you're unable to fathom something being more complex than it actually is, or being more complex than it's perceived. Yeah. I should say.
So the NPC mind.
Go on.
The NPC mind lacks abstract reasoning, and the NPC mind acts basically just on emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
that's
essentially acting on emotion is kind of just autopilot.
Yeah, because I mean that's what it is. Like your emotions are automatic reactions, basically. But people aren't aware that you can actually program that if you just use your minds.
Yeah,
crazy idea.
Not even to sound like spiritual with it. Like I mean, it is just philosophical. Like these are values that you hold. I was discussing this the other day. It's kind of like things are programmable as far as not necessarily like the exact way that your mind reacts. Like I would say like, for example, like to get mad at something, it doesn't necessarily mean that when you are mad at something that you won't like sort of feel like lashing out. It's just the sense of like, you can kind of change what even makes you mad. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of change what even makes you sad. Like, I mean, obviously we would kind of find it, sociopathic for somebody to like not cry about, like a very close, like, like parent or family member or somebody that actually matters, like, the closest person in that person's world to that person. But basically I'm just saying like, it's something where that is not a guarantee that you will do that sort of. It's like your sadness to it, the way you feel about it is not guaranteed. Like if you sort of like detach yourself from that like emotional connection you have, you can make yourself like to the point where, I mean, obviously like people call it stoic or whatever, but the Stoics just kind of neuter themselves to the point where it's like, they do reprogram their values. Like they do reprogram their emotional, like, tendencies to the point where, something that, or I guess they are just kind of like making themselves not sad by things instead of just saying like, this thing will make me sad instead. It's more so like, oh, well, nothing makes me sad. Nothing makes me upset. Like, it's a very cucked viewpoint and people try to make it seem like this like, bold way of thinking. But, honestly, it is sociopathic. I mean, honestly,
it's retarded.
Yeah.
Just going to let that out. And you know what I notice? It's always the people that come from religion because Stoicism always tends to be like, I always call it like diet Christianity or proto-Christianity because that's what it is really.
Mm-hmm.
With a few more differences, obviously, but like generally speaking, it's a kind of like mentality that's required for that kind of ideology. But yeah, there was like one anecdote of one of the early Stoic, I don't know if you could say philosophers, maybe proponents or whatever in like the antiquity era. And there was one anecdote where he was like a slave of some guy. And for whatever reason, he was getting tortured by his master. And the master was like twisting his leg or something like that. And he basically said, if you keep twisting my leg like that, it's going to break. And he said it all calmly like that. And then the guy just kept doing it. And then his leg broke. And he said, yeah, I told you it would break with like no emotion whatsoever, which is I don't know how true that is, but that's kind of the like a great example of what the end goal is supposed to
It
be
sounds
with
like
that kind of
somebody
ideology.
that sounds like somebody on the SSRIs.
Yeah.
That's like that's exactly how that kind of person would react. You just get a big enough dose of that. Yeah. That's how you'll feel. So if anything, I mean, like it's almost like these things that are chemically changing your mind are essentially just, I mean, reprogramming it for you. So it's like, but there is a way to essentially like cause yourself to have this same sort of reaction, through chemical production that is a result of your way of thinking. Because I would say, like, honestly, the mindset has an influence on the actual chemicals being produced in the brain, or I guess like throughout the body, honestly. Because I don't think most serotonin actually like is produced in the brain. To what I know, it's produced in the gut. But
Yeah, I heard that too.
yeah, so but point being is sort of like you could probably increase that because I mean, even from what I know, it's like a novel experience will be something that combats serotonin. Increase in dopamine are things that are combating that. But essentially, you're the one that sort of like finds the novelty in it. You're the one that essentially is deciding how happy you are about things. So I mean, if that's the case, then obviously that means that you have like not necessarily a direct influence just by like knowing exactly like, oh, this will do this to that chemical, but the way that you're thinking about things will actually have an influence on the way that your body is producing these things.
I usually describe it as indirect influence
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like you can just switch the way you perceive something and react to it. It's more so once you realize that it all really comes down to your knowledge of a situation. So if you assume that there is an objective reality, then you can then assume there are right and wrong ways to react to a certain thing or like event or whatever. Once you know that, you can slowly reprogram yourself to, and actually do it once you realize that too. Like for example, a common thing that people kind of have an emotional reaction to is when you say something like, I'm trying to think of something that's kind of universally not liked.
I don't like
Regulations, for example. Like when you start saying, well, there's really no reason to have regulations. When I first heard that idea and when I was first exposed to it, I was like, wait, what? But we have all these good things. We need this, that, and the other. If we don't have this, then horrible things will happen. We have historical evidence of this. But then, like, once you accept the fact that that's not even really necessary, and then you actually start looking into it and see, well, actually, that's not really the case. It's a lot more complex than that. And so on and so forth, then you already start changing the way you perceive something. So now, if you say like saw something on TV talking about like a regulation on food or whatever, beforehand you would have been like, "Oh, this is good. This makes sense. This is why we should have that." But now you're looking at it and you're like, "Whoa, what the fuck? That's crazy. Why do we need that?" type thing. So that's just like a basic example. It's obviously not limited to politics, but that's an easy example to give. But you basically, if you are aware of how it happens and that there is a right and wrong way of perceiving things, which I think everybody kind of implicitly agrees on. They just don't like saying it because it's not in to talk about that in that way.
How do you know your senses aren't deceiving you?
Are we going to talk about that? Because that was really stupid.
How do you know that what you're seeing is real? You're a solipsist? That was a good clip. That was from the Atheist Experience. That was really funny.
I gotta start watching some of those.
There was some caller, one of our friends put in like a 4-hour compilation of those clips. There was this guy who was like talking to them about like he had a problem basically with thinking that it was that thinking that there's not more to us than like our brains, like thinking that there's like no spiritual level to things. Like basically he's like, oh, well, you think love is just a chemical reaction? Like, blah, 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 and I mean, I even replied to that kind of thought by, saying like, essentially what we're talking about with the programming with using values, like, we have these values that we can essentially use to program these emotional states. So it doesn't mean that, you just by default will like feel love for someone just because like, your mind or I guess because you were programmed to have that feeling toward this kind of person, you know what I mean? It's very open to sort of like, your value judgment. So, if you find, and I'm going into this a little bit much, but I'm basically the point when it comes to love is like, you won't necessarily love just, somebody that you were destined to love. It's something that, you have certain values, and that determines sort of who you're attracted to, because you're not going to find certain people attractive based on those values. Like, I'm not going to find some like, fat blue haired girl, that with a nose ring and like fucking, looks like she smells pretty bad. I'm not going to find that attractive, but there will be some beta that will
or a
some
black
like
guy.
some like, yeah, a black guy or like some skinny white guy. It's one or the other. But anyway, point being, I got into that a little bit much, but I'm just saying, like, that guy was calling in and he was basically saying like, oh, you don't think there's like a difference between like, what we have like like as far as our components go of our body and like something higher that sort of like, influences that. And they're like, so what is it? And he's like, well, like, and then he just starts going on a rant about it. He can't really necessarily answer it, but he just gets upset, like, because this challenges his worldview, and they're pointing that out. And he's like answering them on something. He's like, yeah, because I'm a solipsist. And they're like, you're a solipsist at the same time, and they just hang up on him. It's like, and they're like, I wonder why he would have two guys arguing with him in his own head about this. Which is the best line of it, because it's like, yeah, like, at that point, if you think that everything could just be a creation of your imagination, like, why are there people debating you about this in your own world that you somehow like, are forming, with your mind potentially? It just doesn't make sense. It's like, what reason do you have to believe that this is true? And people kind of take it to be like, oh, well, that doesn't mean it's impossible. That doesn't mean it's impossible. But it's like, what reason do you actually have to think that's true? Like, is there any sort of evidence that you would say, like, is cluing you into the idea that any of this is a reality? No. I mean, it's just, they're just taking like, oh, well, theoretically, like, this could be the case. And so then they're just like taking it to be like an assumption that they should be acting upon because of that.
Well, don't you know that some people like pizza and some people don't? That's proof, bro. I like green, but he likes purple.
Well, it's possible that in another world, I didn't have breakfast today.
Full circle. Yeah, I was gonna bring that point up too, actually. Like, yeah, hold on, I gotta like assemble my thoughts. I gotta like actually find out what my person thinks about this at this exact moment that's planned. Anyway, there is one thing I wanted to bring up with regard to that one server we joined, and wait, now I know what I was gonna say. Shit, I feel like a fucking schizophrenic right now. But anyway, I'm surprised those people that you were talking about, the guys of the show, have that perspective, because usually, in my experience, when you have like the atheist bashing Christians or whatever, they almost always are some form of skeptic and or solipsist, which kind of implies one another, to be honest anyway. So I'm wondering how they got to that point of view where they can still have an objective worldview, but not fall into, a religious trap, but have a view that there isn't any God and still not fall into the solipsistic skeptic view that anything I think of can happen, anything I think of is right type thing.
Honestly, there was a point where I did fall into that years ago. I mean, I would say at this point, but, unfortunately, that did happen to me as well. But, I'm cured. I'm fine.
I'm cured.
I've gotten over it. I am delivered. I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I know what you're
talking about.
It's like this black guy who's like, they're in this black church and like he just says that. And,
it still sounds fruity too.
It's my favorite video to share around in June, honestly.
Oh,
yeah, it's inspirational. It's an inspirational story.
I had a slight, not entirely, because the way I went through the whole revoking of religion and all that, it was through an already implied objective lens, which kind of defeats any argument you have from a theist anyway.
Right.
But I had a brief thing where I became like, I'm trying to find a way to say this without it getting political, sort of like our friends in your main server and like the other server that your other guy has, where they kind of have this worldview of like, well, you can't prove anything is right type thing. So like anything goes basically outside of this particular field, which I have an issue with. But
Well, see,
I
that's the
kind
thing. Like, interestingly enough, I mean, like, not necessarily for us, but like, that's something we're hearing from like religious people, right? That, like, I mean, at least three different examples that come straight to mind. And I'm sure, you know what I'm talking about for these three. But basically, it's the idea that these people have either thought about things like so in depth philosophically, or they sort of just kind of like reject reality because of the religious aspect. But they essentially get to the conclusion that I can know nothing without this. And so like when that's a consistent like view with the actual religions themselves, because I mean, even the guy who was quoting like the Bible, he just recently put some verses in that had to do with like rejecting the world and rejecting like enjoyment of the world. Like you should only be feeling like comfort with the Father Almighty. You know what I mean?
there's
So
your stoicism.
right. And so basically, like, just ignore the fact that reality is what you have. Ignore the fact that there is happiness in this world. Ignore that, you can find this yourself. Ignore that, your reason is something that can lead you to logical conclusions. Ignore all of that. And so basically that's what these are consistent with the values being instilled in people that are being taught these things. So it's kind of like, at that point, it makes sense that the people who are straying away from it feel that way. And I feel like, if this was by design, then it's very genius, because it's like it gets people to essentially feel lost without it, to the point where they can only feel comfort when they revert. So they essentially like get them to the point where you're being held hostage mentally you are either in a state where you do believe and you do feel comfortable and you do feel happy with it, or you are just completely lost. And so it makes sense why there are people that are like, oh, I felt lost until I found this, because you didn't have any sort of like reason bringing you to the proper conclusions, to a proper way of living. And so, without hearing these ideas, or at least without figuring them out logically, like without like fine tuning your faculties of reason, you really can't get to this conclusion, as long as you're not kicking out those like terrible ideas that are keeping you in this sort of like loop, or this sort of like I guess like sphere of like like inescapable just sort of mental anguish.
Yeah, the thing is too, if you come from a background, or I mean, I guess you could go like back and forth over and over again, but like assuming you're starting at this particular moment, for the example, at a non-religious point of view, and then you go to religion, you feel comfort, but you're not getting rid of any of the issues. You still have the same exact problems, and actually it reaffirms the same stances you had, but now it's okay because there's an afterlife or something like that. Or everybody else feels like this, therefore it's fine type thing.
Yeah, I've had
And it
conversations with people where it's like, they're like, oh, drug use is wrong. And it was this one girl I was talking to, but she was like, drug use is wrong. And so, but basically, like, if I think somehow the conversation got to like, if you knew there was not a God, like, would you do the drugs if you were about to die soon? And then she was like, yeah, I would just do the drug. It's like, okay,
is
but
this
you
what I
thought,
think it is?
yeah, probably, I don't know. But I'm like, you just thought the drug was bad. No, didn't you just say like, that's not something you would do? It's like, well, I mean, if I know I'm going to die, it's like, and I just want to try it. Like, I know there's nothing else after. So it's like, I may as well. But that kind of gets into the, I mean, if you're going to die anyway, one day, why not just do it now? I mean, like, why is it that this standard of like, you're going to die in like an hour or a day or a week, why is it not that, like you just sort of apply that to your life consistently? And you would be consistently, honestly, at that point, you'd be like, oh, there's nothing else. Let me just do whatever I want right now. Let me just like whim worship.
Yeah, like I completely lost my train of thought of what I was going to say. But basically, I guess what I was trying to get at is there's really, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like we kind of covered the bases on that one.
Oh, well, I guess I could shift the topic a bit, but I wanted to bring up the idea of the Tabula Rasa,
Oh.
because we were talking about that beforehand.
Mhm.
And I think this is the kryptonite of the
Explain what the
people.
tabula rasa is for the folks at home.
Right. I believe it's, well, he didn't come up with the term because it's a Latin term, but I believe it's an Aristotelian concept that he originated. I could be wrong. It could be like somebody else originated it, but they didn't take it far enough. But the idea is basically there are no innate ideas, and this kind of goes against the idea of the like the religious people or like the mystical people, where they say you have this inherent knowledge of God, therefore this is why you keep coming back to God. It's not that the ideology is built to have you miserable and come to it and feel slightly less miserable once you're in it type thing. But
yeah, we already pretty much pointed out how that's the case.
yeah, so like any other thing like that, anything like you have an innate urge towards, I don't know, liking a controlled government, an innate urge towards liking certain sex, an innate urge to liking a certain kind of food or flavor or whatever. Any of that doesn't exist. However, or well, I guess I should give it more
Back in the
context.
third grade, thought that I was gay.
Yeah. The third grade, though. The
Oh,
third grade.
he said on his song because his uncle was, and he liked some color or something.
It's always the uncle. You know what happened with that uncle, bro.
Yeah, I mean, hey, whoa. I'm just saying.
Look,
why would you start, why would you start thinking that because your uncle is, like, if your father is, I don't know if did he have a dad and the homie's white,
see,
so I don't know.
if you're in third grade and how would you even recognize that your uncle was gay unless
you were told,
well, I wasn't saying that.
You were shown. It was
given some
demonstrated.
explicit knowledge of the fact that he was not a normal guy.
It's a suspicious lyric, honestly, because I mean, even if a kid did know about what a gay was, why would it be, I thought that I was gay? Why would it be that?
It's not like a third grader is going to be able to pick up on like cues. Like, how like specifically women say this, like they have gaydar, where they can just tell somebody is without, seeing them do the deed and or admit it outright. Like a third grader is not going to have that. They're not going to be like, oh, well, this guy's voice is a little higher than usual, or this guy, I don't know, he dresses weird or something like that. He's not going to be like, oh, this is what that means. He would have to have some explicit knowledge of what that first of all consists of, and then that it was a thing to begin with without it being like cues.
Look, you have a gaydar, I have a Hoshin detector.
Oh, I have a Hodar too. Better than most, by the way. I would say.
No. So anyway, you were saying about the Tabula Rasa.
Yeah, so the Tabula Rasa basically, and the underlying implication of that is basically that you can teach, basically what we were saying beforehand, you can be taught any kind of idea or any kind of desire based on your environmental influences. So that's why, for example, believe it or not, you don't just decide to become a Christian one day out of nowhere.
What?
That's what I know, right? Crazy. It's not like there's been like a whole like millennium of people not even knowing what Christianity was beforehand, yet somehow you just know it now. I don't know, fucking retarded. Anyway, that's why you have certain religions that are only popular in certain regions. It's because people don't get to go to other places and spread the religion until, you have like immigration and stuff like that. But that doesn't really, if anything, that kind of proves it more than not. But that's why you have certain ideas that are just completely alien. Like I was watching a video about how like Japan, they're banning tourists from certain areas because there's such a culture shock, and the way that I just hate like young people these days. I hate them damn youngsters these days.
Whippersnappers.
But like the quote unquote influencers that go to Japan, they like go around running amok, causing havoc and shit like that. And I mean, there are issues with Japanese culture, no doubt. But I mean, you could not be a dick. But anyway, like the reason that's a thing to begin with is because you won't really have that coming out of Japan because of the culture that you're grown up in. You won't have this kind of idea of like rampant, almost like a nihilistic disrespect for any kind of culture or any kind of like tradition or thing held sacred type thing. But if you come from a different culture where that's kind of just not the norm at all, the norm is don't respect anything, nothing's real, that kind of shit, then you're going to act that way. These are the reasons why certain people have certain convictions that don't exist in other parts of the world or don't exist consistently and so on and so forth. Because if it was a matter of you're programmed a certain way, then you wouldn't be able to change your mind to begin with.
Love is just a chemical reaction, Morty.
So here's the issue I have with the Tabula Rasa people, because that server we were brought up earlier, the one that we both joined, they're all of a certain ideology, which I'll leave in the dark just for my own sake. Jesus, every time I say that, it makes it sound like it's something fucking horrible. I mean, depending on who you ask, I guess it is, but like, they're of the opinion. I really should. Nah, I'm not gonna.
Okay, they're of the opinion what?
They have the idea basically that there is such thing as an objective reality, and underlying that they have the tabula rasa axiom. But the issue is they use it as an axiom. And this is the thing with like modernity in the West. That's also the norm of what you would call, I guess, progressives for the most part. that there is, and they don't even really do it consistently, by the way, but that's kind of like officially their kind of creed. Like the tabula rasa, you can make anybody believe anything, that's type thing. That's like the whole, except when it's inconvenient for them, actually, because then you get the whole gender dysphoria thing, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But when you accept that axiomatically across the board without any kind of influence from anything at all, where you basically say a human being can be literally anything, then you get into just rampant hedonism, and it goes full circle. You go back to the religious people who they have a better way of coping with it because they have a deontological command saying you can't do X, Y, and Z, but they still breed a form of hedonism regardless, because you can see this once people, they come from like a strong like religious household, and then they go out into like the real world, so to speak, and then they start going on a rampant hedonistic bender or whatever type thing. But the tabula rasa principle, when you take it consistently without accordance to nature, then you can justify anything. And I'm trying to think of the example that they gave on, for example, like evopsych, evolutionary psychology. It's basically the idea, I might be using it the wrong way, but you as a human being have certain things that you're inclined to desire as a man or a woman, or, you know, some people even make it like a racial thing. I don't know if there's any validity with that, to be honest. I kind of doubt it, but it technically could be possible, I suppose. But for the purposes of this argument, we'll leave it at like the sexual attraction thing. But these people in particular, you were arguing with them about this, actually. The one girl, I don't know if you want to take it from here or not.
Well, you know, basically the point, the take here, I guess, the position, I suppose, is what I would lay out. That hormonally men and women are obviously different, and so therefore there are going to be, like, you know, the sort of roles that have been, you know, they're called gender roles, but, you know, really the roles of each sex are something that aren't just completely a figment of societal, you know, like oppression of women or something. It is something that is a result, not only because, I mean, there are certain ways in which, you know, you could call it, I suppose, excessive. Like if you were to look at, like, you know, the Islamic culture or whatever, you know, like, you know, in certain ways, sure. But, you know, not all of it is unnatural, not all of it is unnatural. Not all of it is just synthetic. There are parts which are directly linked to the fact that, I mean, obviously men and women are just built different. And, you know, this has to do hormonally. This has to do with the biology in general of, you know, the way men are built. I mean, obviously, you know, back in the day when it was a matter of like hunting, I mean, obviously the men would be the ones suited for that sort of role. But, you know, obviously you know, fighting and sort of anything, any physical altercations or needs would be a lot more, you know, sort of given to the men. Now, the thing is, like, you know, even when it comes to like stress or ability to endure stress, it's something that men are actually a lot more capable of doing. So, I mean, I get this from, like, you know, like the idea of like fasting, like that is something that will sort of deplete women quicker than it will men. Men have a lot easier of a time doing this. And, you know, I guess it has to do with the way that they're reacting to the stress hormones. I would say that they have a better ability to do this. But basically speaking, like, men have more of an ability to endure. They have, you know, more of an ability to like do things that are physically demanding, and so it just makes more sense, you know, that the women, and especially, you know, women when their hormones are imbalanced. You know, let's say they have, like, you know, progesterone is lower than it should be. It's causing them to have more estrogen, and, you know, that's actually not something that you'd necessarily want, because excess estrogen is actually masculinizing. And so the thing is, with when it comes to like progesterone, there was something I saw about women essentially being more nurturing towards those like that they actually care about when their progesterone is higher compared to the estrogen. So there is sort of like these influences of these hormones on the way that that men and women are like, you know, behaving in a sense, not, you know, every single action you take, but, you know, just a general sense of like, who is the one that's more feminine, who's the one that's more masculine, because these are terms that aren't just, you know, nebulous, like, you know, they're just created to essentially create rigid structures for how men and women should act, because, you know, obviously men are just better, and, like, you know, that this is just how it should be, you know, like taking it as some sort of like just axiomatic stance. But basically, like, you know, they're like, these are essentially just promoting the optimal roles for men and women. And I mean, if anything, like, I mean, these hormones and biological sort of like attributes aren't necessarily even promoting it. It's just the fact that, like, if you want to be in line with those, like, these roles, like, you know, where like a traditional role of like what men and women do just make more sense. Like it makes sense for the man to be the provider. It makes sense for the woman to be the homemaker. It makes sense for her to be nurturing the kids more than the man. And the thing is, like in this server, I was arguing that, and sort of like, you know, I just got told it's like, well, what if one's better than the other? Like, what if one, you know, can just do it better? What if a man's better suited to be more nurturing? And it's like, well, then probably the guy has low testosterone and probably the woman has high estrogen. You know, maybe that's the case. But you know, I was just told like that was sort of ignored when I brought that up. I brought up the hormonal argument, and that was just ignored for the fact that like, well, you know, maybe they're not suited for it. And it's like, well, you know, naturally speaking, in general, overall, like a majority of the time, not even just like a 50 to like a 51 to 49, like in most of cases where people are hormonally healthy, and I would say probably in all cases where they're hormonally healthy, like optimally speaking, but you know, it just makes more sense at that point to say, you know, this is what these people would optimally be doing, because if you were to look at how they would perform, they would just perform better doing those things.
Like the thing is too, even like simply on a nature basis too, what would be the point of having two different sexes anyway that are very obviously physically and to an extent mentally dimorphic if they were supposed to just do the same exact thing to a T in regards to sexual reproduction?
Well, you know,
they're not. Like what?
There's a feminist take that's basically because of men's biology, that's what allowed them to oppress women. And so like, I don't think they're necessarily rejecting that like sexual dimorphism has any sort of like meaning, or that it has any sort of like role, you know, like when it comes to how like, you know, nature actually operates. But I think they want to reject that because, you know, they I guess in their minds, they're kind of at a place societally where it's possible to reject it. I mean, it is, but in their minds, it's good to reject it because it's possible, I suppose. And because there's an ability to do so, that means it must be rebelled against.
Right.
So basically, basically they see this in a sense that like anytime you can overcome nature in any way, just do it. Like, you know, and I'm not saying like necessarily like, you know, everything about nature is good. I'm just saying like, when it comes to these sorts of things, like, or at least in this example, you know, it doesn't make sense to be just, you know, like castrating yourself or like causing yourself to be a weaker person, or I suppose less like inclined to be, you know, a nurturing person, you know, in whatever case you may be, simply because this is what nature has for you in, you know, in your body state. And now you just want to complain about that.
I would say I'd argue that nature is pretty much always good as long as you know how to operate within the confines of it. If you don't know how to do it, then yeah, it's going to be an issue. I mean, there's going to be struggles, but I mean,
what does that mean? Like, what do you define as nature? Because, like, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying sickness is something that's like more prevalent in nature necessarily, because if anything, if you're to compare people before modern medicine, just because of like this consensus that we talk about and the issues with it, there are a lot of ways in which people are actually sicker than they once were, but there are also ways in which, you know, lives are actually being saved because of it, you know? And so, you know, let's say like with transhumanism, for example, where it's like, you know, would you get sort of alterations physically to yourself, at least, you know, maybe mentally, but like physically as well, so that you could sort of like be like, I mean, have better physical attributes. I'm not necessarily saying that's like inherently bad or anything.
I'm not saying like a state of nature, like return to like an Adam and Eve type thing, because you wouldn't have a consciousness and an ability to think rationally if it wasn't built into your nature. So like, I always love this example because I always bring this up whenever I'm arguing with somebody, that you should be confined to your nature in the sense that you shouldn't try to rebel against nature, because you're not going to win. And it's just going to lead to some form of tragedy, either individually or collectively. But they're always like, well, skyscrapers aren't in our nature. And it's like, well, technically, yes, because skyscrapers are fucking disgusting looking from an aesthetic perspective. But I mean, it's within, we wouldn't be able to do it if it was outside of our natural ability. So, I mean, that's not really the argument I'm making. I'm not saying.
But then it's within our natural ability to reject nature.
It is in our natural ability to reject nature, but there are consequences for that, is the thing.
Right,
consequences
right.
And are very clearly not great for human beings, as we see nowadays.
And I mean, I think it's good that we have, you know, I mean, obviously that's like volition, that's free will. I mean, it's a good thing that we have the ability to do it, but it doesn't mean that everything we have the ability to do is good. It doesn't, you know, because we have the ability to murder. We have the ability to do a lot of other terrible things that I don't even want to necessarily name on this show, you know, just because, you know, probably YouTube censors and all that. But, you know, there are disgusting things that people do. You know, it's not good that we have the ability to do this, but it's like, that's why, I mean, that's sort of a product of having free will.
I see what you mean by like the nature not being inherently good then. In that perspective, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, like, if anything, I mean, sort of the I guess I don't know, thing I would insert there is that reason is also within our nature. So it's like we're not rebelling against nature necessarily by doing anything, because a lot of things that we do are, I mean, are rational, and that is within our nature.
Yeah, I would say you would need to be bound by nature, which would come out of being rational in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
is my perspective. So, like, you can do anything you want because you'd have free will, which is technically within your nature. But whether or not it's rational or ideal or even just beneficial in any way, shape, or form is still up for debate,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that you have the capabilities to do it.
Right. And so, I mean, like, as you were saying, these people basically just, sort of want to rebel against this specific thing, and I don't know, because the thing that was brought up was like productivity. It's like, oh, well, you could be more productive as a woman, as like, an astronaut, or like a physicist, or like, whatever have you, construction, something maybe. I don't know if construction was actually brought up, but it would be funny if it was. But, point being is that basically, it is to say that, oh, well, productivity is the highest standard. Well, what does productivity actually mean? I mean, like, well, the definition I was given had to do with like producing value, like basically, having something of value. And it's like, yes, that is how you like gain, from others, basically, like by giving them something of value. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like creating something that others value is necessarily like the end goal of everything, right? It's like, if I care about some sort of artistic creation, it doesn't really matter that like, it's widely accepted or widely liked or widely like, reviewed as something good. It's like, I mean, depending on the society you're in, I mean, as far as the good part goes, but I mean, it's not as if I'm trying, it's not as if I'm trying to make like the common denominator form of artwork, because if anything, if you're working toward productivity, you'd be making like Marvel movies, right? And like, do you really want to be making Marvel movies? I don't think so. Checkmate.
What they're doing is they're doing two things, which ironically enough, because I know exactly their ideology, I'm pretty sure it's explicitly rejected this kind of interpretation of the ideology they have. It breaks it down to a sharp and aggressive utilitarianism.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, a rather I totally forgot the word I was going to use now, but a utilitarianism and
what, like altruism or something?
No. Okay, no, I remember now. Utilitarianism, and if you're talking about the definition of value, that which implies altruism, but the value thing, that the definition you got, that would also be a fallacy of applying to the majority. The majority consider this valuable, therefore it's valuable,
it's
without
like,
any regards to whether or not it actually has any or not intrinsic, but objective value.
Well, in what I'm thinking, it's a matter of like, do you, a person who finds yourself to be rational, do you find value in it? And it's like, okay, well, if you're trying to like make a business, yeah, you actually do have to kind of appeal to more people, or at least some sort of niche, like where it's like, you have to understand who your market is. But it's like, why is that sort of your end goal? Like, as far as what you want out of life, like, why is it all about this? Like, it's sort of a very like, I mean, if anything, somewhat corporate mindset, but also like, it just, just because you think market activity is good doesn't mean you have to think that like working your life away is the point of life.
I mean, even if you follow that, like, there are very clear indicators that this isn't like, this is gonna make me sound like a fucking like socialist or something like that, but like there are very clear indicators that what's going on now, where you basically tell men and women to just like work until they drop, basically, in any whichever like form you want to take that in, is just not good. I mean, you have women on SSRIs, like it's a fucking like popping it like pills. Well, they are pills. Popping it
birth control too.
And those
and
things
the birth
have
control, I think, is
negative.
more of a, I mean, I get the SSRIs is also a product of this, but I think the hormonal birth control is definitely like, you could easily tie it to that. Like, I think the SSRIs takes a little bit more abstract, like sort of like understanding of why that's the case. But the birth control one is like, it's direct, because obviously it's like career woman, like get that abortion, get that birth control. And then you could just like, be a boss babe or whatever. It's like the SSRIs more so we would have to kind of link to being a product of the stress that the woman is dealing with, sort of like compared to, somebody else that would be better at handling it. And so basically they're essentially mentally neutered by, the pharmaceutical industry because of the stress that they're dealing with. So like you kind of have to go in a little deeper with that one.
Right, which is a fair point. And like the other thing is, I think the issue with what they're doing is and I was kind of like this too because I didn't really actually look into any of this. I don't even know if that's really the end goal either. Because like the thing is too, like the philosopher that they like, she literally has an article where she's saying stuff like, "Hey, you shouldn't have a female as a president," which is very clearly a validation of gender roles, if you want to call it that. Yet they still reject that. And then on
well,
top
she
of
was
that,
just wrong about that, right? You know,
yeah,
it has
yeah,
nothing to do
totally.
with the rest of the ideology.
She was just behind the times, guys. It's totally different. And then if you take it even further to Aristotle, which is the originator of the whole tabula rasa type thing, and you have to like experience things and have like a rational worldview, he was pretty like explicit with the fact like, yeah, no, we shouldn't have women voting and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like he was just like
Hey
how
Siri,
do you
can you pull up Aristotle on women? There's a short video on YouTube about it. I would just say, you know, probably watch that.
Oh yeah. I wasn't even thinking of
Bro's
that.
been dropping red pills since 300.
Aristotle, Godfather of the Red Pill. But yeah, like when they interpret it like this, it's like they don't have any rule or shit. Hold on, let me rephrase that because I was talking about how I had the same mentality for a while too until I realized that there are actually more things going into this. The way they're looking at things is solely through a conceptual level, which to their credit is something that a lot of people don't have to begin with. So they are already like ahead of the game or ahead of the curve. I'm just ahead of the curve. If you want, we need to add more soundboard stuff, by the way. It's just great. But they're ahead of like the pack, so to speak, in terms of that because they're actually thinking about things. But the problem is they're the exact opposite of what the philosopher would say is called concrete bound, which is what we were talking about, like the NPCs, the people that don't think or have almost like neutered themselves to the ability where they're incapable of thinking almost. They're the exact inverse of that, where they're thinking about all the things that are abstract that are wrong with people, which are valid, but they're not thinking about the actual physical effects that come into play along with that, such as the SSRIs, such as the birth control that are affecting your hormones and making you think a certain way and making you act a certain way, shaping the actual way your body is shaped, for example. The fact that there is like a certain kind of agenda that's pushed that is not only just pushed in terms of like education, which they are aware of, but they're not even coming to the conclusion that it's necessarily bad either, which is weird. But on top of that, the food you're eating is affecting the way you're thinking about these things. The culture you're in affects the way you're thinking about these things. Like, it's like they're unaware of the fact that they're still kind of falling into the collectivist trap that they despise, so to speak. And another thing I think is part of it is that they're so aggressively against the quote unquote conservatives on valid points some of the times that they're kind of just throw out all of their points along with the bathwater for no reason.
Throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah, like, and this is why like the other group of people that are kind of in this semi-related field, like the shit. I mean, he's not like the, you know, your guy, the Ben guy that you were talking about a while ago. He's part of this kind of group where they follow this German guy that's actually still alive, I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so where like they'll join the server and they'll say some like outrageous stuff, but a lot of the time I'll end up agreeing with them more because they at least at the very like least they give the idea credence. Fuck, I'm not like saying this correctly. They give credence to the idea that there are outside influences that are physical that we can measure, that we can see, that we can experiment on, that will affect the way you behave and affect the way you conserve certain ideas, traditions, so on and so forth. Like hormonal stuff. They get into like the race stuff, so that's a bit. But I mean, they're at least giving it some kind of like honest interpretation instead of just saying no, it's bad on the face. So,
yeah, I mean, like, why do you think that is? Like, you think it's just sort of like they feel, well, I'm speaking about the people that reject sort of like, you know, these ideas as far as anything really having truth to it, as far as like, you know, things in reality, you know, like, and that's kind of the funny part about it. It's like, you know, they want to talk about being so like, you know, for reality, but then like when it comes to things that actually are real, like, you know, that are of nature, then they start to get a little, you know, pressed about that. But basically like those sorts of, yeah, those sorts of people. I'm just saying, like, shit. I did lose my train of thought now. But point being, why is it? Oh yeah, okay. So why do they feel so inclined to reject these things? Like, is it a matter of like they feel more comfortable when they don't have to address these things? Like they just feel like it's a matter of, well, if I can just say that it's all not real, rather than understanding what is real and what's not, like I don't really have to like accept the truth to it. Which I mean, that's like a lot of way that people think. I'm just, I guess that's a simple application to it.
When I first got into this idea of like questioning things on an honest basis and then coming to a conclusion, one of which was the idea of rejecting religion and so on. I had this one guy that initially showed me this kind of methodology of thinking, I guess you could say. And I asked him about this, like, hey, aren't there other people that think like this? And he was telling me, like, yeah, there are, but I don't like any of them because of the fact that they have ideologies or an interpretation of the ideology like this, where it's basically they become progressives that are just open market kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really taking the full applications of the conclusions in the ideology into account. They're really just kind of focusing on one particular thing and saying it's the worst thing in the world, which obviously it's not great the state of the world is right now, but like they'll completely ignore or even like outwardly reject the other side. And the reason he gave for this is basically these are people that used to be conservatives, came from a conservative household, and then they realized that religion didn't make sense. So then they jumped on this bandwagon and they just kind of went full anti-conservative, like I was saying beforehand, to like full speed ahead with the train to just get rid of and dunk on as many conservatives as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, every now and then throwing a little shade at like the leftist progressives as well, that they kind of just become their own little like echo chamber as well.
Mm.
And this is another thing, like I always went out of my way to do it, mainly because I just like trolling people. But I mean, it ended up having some benefits for me. I would go into like servers and like other like places online or even just people I knew, talking to them about certain things that would push me out of my comfort zone. So then I could, one, validate the validity of the ideas I have, or take into account that there might be something more that I'm not noticing here, which is why I probably wouldn't know most of the stuff about like the whole hormone stuff and whatnot if I didn't start talking to you and like some other people in that kind of group that we met in. But it's something that you just kind of don't think about if you don't know where to look.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that,
and honestly, like the way that they're treating these things, it seems like they're honestly just taking these they're taking the conclusions of those who have had rational thought as truth, and basically just doing essentially what those before them have done when it comes to religion. Instead, now they're treating this as religion and saying like, well, actually these are all truths because I was told by the person who must have been the most rational thinker I can think of. But then not really like the problem with it is it actually has to kind of do with what we were talking about with like the Christianity stuff, where like with marriage, how you gave it as an example, like they say it's good. Well, why? Because God said so, right? And so it's like they don't really talk about anything past that. I think there's the same problem here, or a similar issue, where there's sort of a lapse in logical thought, where they're unable to really justify a lot of these beliefs other than just saying, well, it's rational, it makes sense. And so they get to the point where they just take these values as sort of a list of things that they sort of, I mean, again, it just gets into that same like deontological perspective of like just taking this as truth. So it kind of like affects their ability to, in every aspect of their lives, actually apply it, because they're only really taking these things as truth, but not actually understanding why they are. And so they can't really like consistently format their worldview around it.
Yeah, it's almost like they're taking the idea of being anti, so to speak, open-minded, where they're consistent in their values, but they aren't taking into account if the environment you're in doesn't line up with the axioms you hold, then you should probably either reconsider the context of which it's happening and see why it's not lining up, or just question the axiom to begin with. Because an axioms do exist, because you can't really have any logic without a solid foundation. But I'm pretty sure for the most part, except for like the more hard to prove things like revolving around the mind in particular, you kind of need to see the axioms take place in reality. So if they're not taking place in reality, then it defeats the purpose. You're just kind of blindly following something like a creed again. You're in the same position. And
Right.
another anecdote, I was in that server when well, I'm in the server, but I was in that server one day, and I was just lurking in the VC that they were having one day, and this is going to be
Explain what
really
a
awkward,
VC is to the folks at home.
right? Because they don't know what a VC is. Do they actually not? Is that like a thing?
I don't know if everybody knows what that is.
It's like this. You get in like a
But
little
what does it stand for the
voice chat.
Exactly. Okay, there we go. We're good.
I mean, I guess if you follow is necessary, but I was in the VC and I was lurking with my epic new profile picture and username. I don't know if you noticed. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's great, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, I just needed validation for that. Anyway, so I'm sitting there lurking for like a good hour while they're talking about stuff that I'm only half listening to because I was like eating food and listening to music at the same time. And it's actually funny too, because then eventually, because I changed my username to something that's basically illegible for most people on Earth, and after like an hour, they see me because they invited me in with like a different username, like a username that was actually in English, and they see me in the voice chat. They're like, "Wait, who the fuck is this guy? Who let this guy in?" And I was like, "Oh shit, am I gonna have to speak so I don't get kicked out?" But eventually they figured it out because like this is on Discord. They saw like the name, I don't know what you call that, like the tag name, I guess. Yeah, that you can't change anymore.
Yeah.
Which is annoying, but whatever.
Oh, you want to be able to change that.
I used to change it all the time.
Yeah. That's true.
But
so what, you can't change it like you have to wait a period before you can do it again, or you just can't?
I think you just can't.
Really? We're stuck with these?
Yeah, because they got rid of the numbers. So they wouldn't have any other way to identify your account as being your specific account.
Well, dang.
I mean, I suppose maybe if there's like a name that hasn't been taken yet, you can maybe change it, but I don't.
Oh yeah, but there's like so much you can do with that because there are so many names that are already taken.
And then once you drop your name, then you have the risk of you can't go back to it. So
that too. And they might limit the amount of times you could do it, like per week or per month.
I imagine it's probably like per year since they're doing it like hard without the numbers now.
Who knows?
I don't know. But anyway, I was sitting in there and they were about to kick me. And then like the one girl that owns the service, she's like, oh, okay, it's this guy. I remember him. And then they just kind of continued. Then like another like hour or so goes by and they finally get to a topic that I'm actually paying attention to and actually can contribute to.
You stayed in there for an hour just listening to stuff you didn't care about?
Yeah, I thought it was funny just kind of sitting there with my new profile picture and the illegible username. So
should be Arabic next time.
Nah. Well, see, but I can't go any further than this. This is like the peak.
Yeah.
There's like
nobody.
So what,
this is it?
I mean, it's not going to stay like that. I'm going to change it eventually.
But I
mean, I can't go higher than this. I guess I could. I think I did at one point. I don't know.
Well, you got to do it again.
Unless I can find like another.
I'll do
equally, it. Like on. Shit, I completely forgot the word I was going to use. This is bad.
You need some more sugar or something.
Yeah, I had potatoes instead of my usual apples. But anyway.
Do you eat it with saturated fat?
Lard.
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
Close.
Listen, it tastes good.
Well,
anyway,
those pigs, they got a lot of PUFA.
It's like what, 15-25%?
That's more than like olive oil or avocado oil.
Is it actually?
I think those are like 10%.
Damn. I like bacon though. Until I get that beef bacon, then but anyway, this has been way too long for a setup. But anyway, I'm sitting in there for an hour. I finally hear something I can contribute to and was paying attention to. And they were talking about shit. You know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to throw them under the bus and give the full details. Because he just kind of let it out. And I was like, wait, what? He was talking about how...
Who?
One of the guys in there. I'll give you the username later because I don't want to like, like,
okay.
Yeah. Or I guess I could type it here. You
okay.
Can, like,
okay.
look it up in Discord. Okay. That's his username.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. He was talking about how he has this like not a fetish, but like a fixation for in terms of sexual attraction, like I don't know, like a preference basically is what he called it. So basically, hold on.
Oh, okay. So anyway, here's what I got for now. I got a message from one of
I'm
our
back.
fans. Oh, I was gonna say
Continue.
we have fan mail on Discord. So basically, there's this guy who says this part killed me, and he's talking about the episode where we had Ignis on. So let's play that segment in here. I'm just gonna kind of play it into my microphone, but actually, maybe I could get it to. I don't know if I can actually get it to where I can pull it up on the browser. You know what I'm saying? Like if you just sent me a clip on Discord, you think there's a way? You think there's a way to do that? Here, I'm gonna copy the media link.
Shouldn't you?
No, hold on. I need to send it to you, and you need to send it in our private chat.
Okay.
That's gonna because I have some weird connection stuff. So here we go. I'm gonna send this. We're gonna try it this way. Is that working? Is that a working clip?
Be able to save it on.
You just have to be able to send me some sort of link I can pull up in a browser. Like check how you can pull it up in a browser.
Okay, let me try copying the link, I guess.
It's just a clip from our show, so we, we have the context. It's just, we want to see what this guy's talking about. Let's see if I can pull that up. I mean, you got me with a link, so let's see if that. Oh, okay, hold on. Oh no, it downloads. You think? Oh, what I can do is I can actually bring it back into the StreamYard and play it. So hold on, let me get. I was standing up, so I actually have to sit down. Yeah, I was standing while we were recording. I like it. It's like I don't want to be sedentary the whole time.
I don't like being set. Whenever I'm on like a phone call or anything like that, I'm always like walking around.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, something. So we have the clip. I just have to get it in. I think I added through the brand. Let's see, background music, video. Okay, there we go. Video clips. So look, this is professional work right here. If anything, I've never seen anything. Oh my God, can you not use an MOV file? Jeez.
Wait, are you like walking with the mic in your hand?
No, I'm sitting down, but I'm just trying to figure out if I can get this up. But the problem is the MOV file might be a format that StreamYard doesn't accept. Maybe I could play it from my video player. Maybe there's a way I could screen share.
That could work.
Hopefully. Let's see how long the clip even is. I don't even know how many seconds. It's like a 43-second clip. Okay. I didn't even mean to do it that time. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Oh, I can share the screen. No.
Come with MOV. Come with MOV.
Oh, I can share the media player as a window. There we go. That works. Okay, so this is our video. Let's see how it sounds. You said what?
It doesn't.
Huh? You don't hear it?
No.
What? That doesn't make sense. We have it on. That doesn't make. Hold on. You sure?
I mean, play it again, I guess. Yeah, no.
You don't hear that?
Nope.
Oh my God. Okay. So we're gonna have to do a bit of work here. We're gonna have to. Okay. How about you go on your thing and then I'll see if I can figure out how to do it.
All right. Where was I? Oh yeah. So the guy in the VC, he was talking about how he's got this preference for almond-shaped eyes.
So like Asians?
No. Almond-shaped eyes is like it's like, like in cartoons how like they'll have like a really attractive woman and her eyes are like not slanted, but they're like narrow.
But how does this look in real life?
I'm trying. Let me see if we can find like a.
Yeah, let's find a picture to put up on the screen for everybody.
Shit, it's still turmeric. Hold on.
See, I'm looking up convert MOV to MP4. Here you are. We're in the lab creating this shit, man. For you guys, we didn't come prepared with these clips because we don't even know what we're going to put on the show. It's miraculous. It's surprising even to us. We have these surprises and real life experiences that you guys experience with us. We want to live life with you. We want to grow old with you all, every single one of you. And unless you touch kids, then we don't want to grow old with you, nigga.
We would prefer you don't grow old, actually.
Yeah, we'd prefer you don't grow at all from this point onward. We hope you don't see the light of day tomorrow. I mean, it's true.
So do you want me to share it then, since you're doing that?
Yeah, you share that. I'm working on it, but you share that, and I'll put it on the screen. You just gotta, click that.
All right, and then you turn it off, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
There we go. I got the video clip finally. So unless you have the almond thing coming in 2 seconds, it's about to be done processing. It's not processed yet. Oh, I got it. Oh, so we got it at the exact same time. So we'll just see the almond eyes first. Okay.
This is the best one I
This
could
is some
find,
Arab chick.
Yeah. She could be like Greek or Italian.
Okay, fair enough.
But anyway,
that's Arab, Greek, or Italian chick.
There's your reference there. It's like Mediterranean look.
Yeah, Mediterranean chick. And so what about that? I mean, that she had a lot of makeup on, so it kind of
yeah, I was gonna say
like she's trying to accentuate the eyes there.
I can't fucking makeup, man. That's another argument.
Do you have another one where it's just no makeup, like almond eyes?
Not on me. Let me see.
Maybe you could look.
They're all kind of got makeup on.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they're trying to make it shaped like that. So the point being, this guy likes that. He likes when they look like almonds. He likes thinking of nuts when he looks at women.
He likes that. He likes that eye shape. Is the point?
Yeah.
But and remember, he's from the server where they have that ideology of basically tabula rasa. So therefore, you got to justify everything.
Yeah.
Because he can't explain why. Well, no, he actually specified. It's not that he can't explain it, why he has that. He just does not see any utilitarian advantage for having that preference whatsoever. So therefore, he thinks it's something that he needs to get rid of. Which, yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? But here's the best part. The best part is, he told a buddy of his about this, and basically, his buddy of his was sending him. Well, to be fair, I don't actually know if it was videos or not, but he was sending him content, basically, of women that don't have this eye shape, basically. And
so wait, to clarify the almond shape. So let me get this picture up. With this woman does have some makeup, but before we go into, I actually do want to clarify with the almond shape here. So let me just share this tab real quick and ask this question. You can just hold on to what you're saying, but so this right here, right? Let's see, this right here, right? This is what you were talking about. So is it to ask? Is the almond part the fact that the eyes go in like a triangular shape inward, or is it that they're like pointing up like that with like a little bit of like a circular shape upward?
I think it might be both, to be honest.
Okay, well, the upward part at least, that's like the cantle tilt, right?
Yeah, that's what he called it.
And so at least what it's associated with, is like youth. Like if you have an upward cantle tilt, so. But as opposed to if you have a lower one where that makes you look like supposedly it makes you look older. Now I saw a video online where they were talking about this, and the guy's like, "Well, look, these are just beauty standards. We shouldn't be attributing this to actually like the young and the old. So just everybody's beautiful in their own way. Bullshit. But everybody's beautiful in their own way. And so basically, but it makes sense that this is well, I mean, not necessarily like I have the exact understanding of it, but I'm just saying like if you do look at two people, like one with the upward one and one with the downward one, I don't think it's necessarily like an idea that's been instilled in us by the Europeans, but like I
mean, it's not even Europeans mostly that have that anyway.
But the point being is kind of like if you see somebody with like at least the lower one, like the downward one, they do look more tired. It looks like it looks like a state of exhaustion almost. So I understand why it's kind of like the upward one, it looks more vibrant. It looks youthful. It does.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, point being, this guy has another guy he's consulting about it. You say.
Yeah, so he'll send him content. I don't remember the exact format, but he'll send him content of women without that cantle tilt. And what he'll do is he will, he'll visualize the content he's received, and he'll
whoa.
Yeah, he'll
Are you serious?
Yeah, he said it.
So this guy has another guy sending him videos of, I mean, they're of women, but like there's another dude sending you materials to take a look at and, pleasure, you be in a state of pleasure with too. Right. And so, basically your homie is sending you the material that you're doing the deed with. And so it's like, that's pretty gay. I don't know, like he's trying to get over something. Like basically he's like, oh, well, it's objectively bad because I can't justify it. So like, therefore, let me be kind of like fruity. Let me do something a little fruity to get over that. And so, you should ask this guy, like, do you think fruity is, objectively bad? Is it bad to be fruity? Because if he says no, I mean, I don't know. That's another discussion.
Get into that because we did kind of touch on that. Pause.
I touched on that with two people, one of them being the woman, another one being a guy who is associated with a similar sphere of people and gatherings. And basically, I was telling them about this. They said they don't really see anything like objectively wrong with it. You know what I mean? And they're both like of this same sort of similar ideology, at least. But
Do I
point
know them?
being, you know the woman. You don't know the woman's just the one from the server. I'm saying there's another guy who isn't in the server, but he's like associated with her through like another social sphere. Or
Wait,
like,
what?
They were basically saying they don't see a problem with it.
Yo, there's
I was
literally...
asking, do you see anything wrong with it? You know, because I was like, well, it makes more sense. Like, you know, if I want to have kids, why would I tell them that it's just the same? You know, unless I really thought that. You know, but you know, I didn't. You know, I'm not saying whether I thought it or not. I'm just saying, you know, if I had children, I'd obviously want them to know, you know, which one is better, or if, you know, if there is any better position to have on it. So obviously they didn't put a lot of thought into it. I'm saying you should probably put more thought into it, because obviously, you know, there may be a solution here to this question.
There's literally a clip, I think I sent it to you guys, where the person in question that they get their ideology from says, like verbatim, it's disgusting.
Yes. But again, they don't even acknowledge the other takes that have to do with like men and women. So,
fuck?
You know, it's like, you know, all these social questions. And, you know, even so, I don't think those things are widely talked about, you know, because as you're saying, you know,
No, they are kind
of
of like deep, like
right.
You have to, like, look for them.
So these people are kind of surface level when it comes to their understanding. So they're not really looking into all these like these old ideas of it that aren't as widely talked about.
By the way, that's not an endorsement of that.
We're just saying whether or not, you know, there is somebody that says it's bad or not. And, you know, like, is it a question that you should be asking at all? You know, and these people say no. I mean, it's not really that they say you shouldn't be asking it, but it's more so, you know, they don't really think there's much more to look into than the fact that it's like, this is just what you're attracted to, you know. But I wonder what they would say about, and I guess, you know, the problem may be comparing them, but, you know, obviously there's a reason we would, you know, but I'm just saying, like, you know, like with the fetish stuff, right? You know, like basically this guy with the almond eye thing, you know, he's basically saying he can't even justify it. So he doesn't want to have that as sort of a mindset for what he finds attractive. So basically, you know, how does that like, you know, relate to like people that may find themselves to have inclinations of either homosexuality or whatever, you know, like, would they have to basically just revert to one or the other, or is this not even a question here? Is there no question about that? It's just that you don't even have to objectively justify this one. It's just kind of what you feel.
You know, it's funny too, because they try to get to an objective conclusion on literally everything, yet they just conveniently decide not to care about that one particular issue.
Yeah, it's as if they're like agnostic on it.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
But I'm not finished with that story, by the way. So after he mentions this, I chime in and I'm like, I didn't chime in the voice chat yet. At first, I was like typing in the chat, like, you what?
What did he say?
But basically, I joined the voice chat and then I started engaging with him because like the other guy who was arguing with this with or talking about with left. So I was like, all right, well, I gotta cook this guy. What the hell is going on here? So I asked him about it. I'm like, why is it wrong for you to have this inclination anyway? Because even if, let's assume it didn't have any relation to femininity, which it very clearly seems like it does. Even if it didn't, I don't see why it would be a bad thing necessarily. And I brought this up later on in the conversation, and he basically went on to like give like these very sweeping opinions on what is objectively ideal to value, which I would agree there are some things that are objectively ideal to value as a man and a woman, like respectively, but I wouldn't say there's one option like total. Like one example he gave was like blonde hair represents the radiance of the sun, so therefore you should opt for a blonde-haired woman. And I never even got to make this point. Because we kind of like got off topic. I was like, hold on. If you take that to its logical conclusion, would that not just mean like, you know,
hey, there were some ideas put out there about what kind of people have good genetics and what kind of people are, you know, what kind of you know, I'm not going to name the race of superiors or of some sort. I'm just going to say that there were some ideas proposed about having a certain color of hair and eyes and skin. I'm just saying.
I'm not gonna say what kind of guy it was. It was a German
I'm
guy.
not. Yeah, I'm not going to say what people.
But yeah. So he brings up that example. He brings up another example of or no, I like basically like try to get him into a corner to admit that there are certain things that like it's not so much that there is a correct and right answer 1-to-1 for everything. Rather, there's a range of acceptable options that are good and a range of unacceptable options that are bad, depending on what you're talking about. So, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with you if, like, you prefer redheads to, like, brunettes or whatever. Like, you can have your preference on that. There's nothing inherently wrong with preferring one or the other, or inherently better with preferring one or the other. As long as it's, if you're a man, as long as it's a woman, and it's like a not masculine haircut, I guess. But
and not obese.
Yeah, diabetes.
Diabetes.
But one of the examples he gave was like, because this is where I got the utilitarian thing. His whole thing is basically if you can't justify utilitarianly on whether or not this aspect of a woman or man, if you're a woman, whichever, of your partner. I hate using that. But anyway, that person that you want to be sexually
What's
with,
another word for it?
I can't think of one.
It's not
Consort,
even
I guess.
spouse. Consort. Okay.
That works for now.
It's classy.
Yeah, right?
Are there any other connotations of it that's kind of like
I don't think so.
problem for the okay.
But your consort or whatever, as long as it's like relative to what that is. But he's basically saying if you can't find any utilitarian, objective, selfish benefit on your end for that trait, then it's an invalid trait and you should get rid of any inclination for it. So then one of the traits he gives is he said, well, since I've been going to the gym, I've seen the value of being in shape and being able to lift heavy things and being in a healthy state of mind and all that, healthy physically. And then he said, that's why I prefer women that are, buff and like muscly.
What?
Like yeah, that's what I was like. I
Okay.
bluntly told him, I was like, nah, bro, that's kind of gay. That's
He's
kind of
doing a
gay.
lot of sus things.
Yeah, it's
Too many sus things.
To be fair, on his point on the almanize, I think later on he clarified that because he had such a strong inclination for that, he was eliminating other what he would consider ideal mates because they didn't have almanize.
But why would he have to? Well, I mean, I understand why he would feel the need to, try and essentially restructure some of his pathways to find some other things attractive as well. But the problem is there's a guy sending you those videos. That's the main issue here. That's of all of it, you could think all these things if you want, but don't have a guy sending you can look this up yourself. Why does there have to be somebody else sending you these videos? Why? The internet is free.
No, I think maybe if I'm going to make a hypothesis, maybe it's like he'll be looking for stuff, right? And he'll see one of almond eyes and that's it. He'll just go straight for it.
So okay, so you think he'll
but even then
finish the deed too quickly because there's a woman with almond eyes. He's not going to go further for searching. But don't you have to be particular?
Self-control for that though.
Yeah.
Like if you're going in with that like that conclusion or that goal, you should be able to be like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Not what I'm looking for.
Right.
Let me go through this.
Yeah. So, what's with that? What's with this guy?
I have no idea, bro. It's fucking weird. This is like the last thing I'd expect from these kinds of people too. Like, cause like the guy that got me into it, he was like, oh, well, more along the lines of like what you and I would think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like me getting thrown into this. I'm like, what?
Now,
the fuck is this?
But what exactly is the okay, what is the I guess appropriate position on even viewing this sort of content in the first place?
Generally, like just like any content like that.
Yeah.
Generally, there's not really an moral issue necessarily. My perspective is basically So if you're a guy and you have healthy hormones, right, you're gonna have,
Needs.
right. Now, ideally, you would look for someone to. This is why I'm kind of not like against the whole. I'm not entirely against the whole hookup culture thing because it's better to have someone you're doing it with rather than just doing it to yourself. In my perspective, ideally, though, you'd want to do that in the context of a relationship, though. But if you don't have either of those, I mean, as long as you don't get like addicted to it, it's not a moral issue. So that's kind of the stance.
So you're saying you can get addicted to it?
I think you'd be weak-willed.
Yeah.
I'm still not entirely sold on the addiction thing, but I do see it as. I will admit that the way the industry moves and the things that they promote, it's definitely not something you should be praising.
I think the addiction thing is like the bigger issue of it is that men are exposed to it at such a young age these days that, like, if anything, I could see why it would, cause addictive like qualities in somebody because of the fact that, like, you're not necessarily in a completely like psychologically developed state to even be seeing that.
I could see that argument. Like, there's generally, and it's weird too. Did you hear about the thing too where the hub, I'll just call it that, they left the state because the state said, hey, we need you to verify what the viewer's age by like using an ID or whatever. And instead of like, negotiating or like complying, they just left the state.
Wasn't that Utah?
Yeah, it was Utah.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, that's interesting.
So I mean, it is, though. I see, like, okay, I'm not saying like, it's a good thing that, people would have access to this, before they're necessarily like at an age where they should be, or, even really considering consuming this stuff. Now, the thing is, there's a couple issues, I suppose I would say, is that, first of all, it's like, the issue here being, it's like basically by creating that sort of restriction, where you have to verify the age, but it's like the use of like a state ID and all that. The issue there would be, it's like that definitely affects viewership. So at least from a company standpoint, it's kind of like, oh, well, our market share is going to be lessened because not everybody who is of that age necessarily wants to be putting in all this information to, see that sort of content. Like they just kind of want it to right away be sort of something they have access to, you know what I mean? It's because,
right.
Let's say you got one hand on, somewhere, and the other hand, it's like, looking for your ID, trying to like type in the information. It's like, not everybody's going to want to do that sort of thing. So it's like, I get what they're coming. I mean, but is it really better to not have any access in that state altogether is the kind of question. They're like, why did they view it as so important that if anything, they'll lose out on all the business rather than still have some of it there? Which is an interesting question. I don't know. Did they not want to create the verification system? Is it like, was it that much of a hassle to go through all that information?
I don't know. It rings echoes of like that thing a while ago. I don't know how many years ago it was, where I don't even know how they got away with this for so long too. They just kind of didn't have the resources to, what's the word? Like monitor and make sure everything that's uploaded there. Cause it's kind of like YouTube, I assume, where you can kind of just upload anything. You don't have to be in the industry.
They didn't have a way of, though.
They did fix it, but it took a while, and it took like legal notice for them to actually be like, oh shit, we actually probably should be doing this now. Or they would check and see that the people that were in the videos were actually of age by US law.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that because, like, I guess there wasn't enough of a verification to the point where people could just upload that stuff.
Like I see the argument where it's like there's a lot of people posting stuff, but at the same time, because of the kind of content it is, and the implications of what it would be if you missed something.
Right.
It's like, why would you not just put that in place to begin with so you didn't have to deal with this kind of like
See, that makes a lot more sense than the actual, because like the thing with the age verification is too, is like a lot of states like sort of have like this, like, it's not really set in stone as far as when they want, access to these things. Like they changed it up a lot. Like, like let's say with like nicotine or tobacco or like alcohol, I mean, not necessarily, well, yes, alcohol is just kind of like an all over the place 21 thing now because of the whole, like the withholding of like federal funds for like roads if they didn't do it. But
wait, what?
Yeah, so basically, like the drinking age was set. It wasn't 21 initially, but basically, I think Mothers Against Drunk Driving actually had a role in this. I think they brag about having this as part of their victories, but I forgot which president it was at the time. But basically, who was it? I don't remember. But basically, what it was is that they set a they didn't set like a national drinking age, but what they did was essentially say to like states that won't raise it to 21 because they were so concerned, or at least their justification was they were so concerned over like young drinkers that were driving. They said basically if you were not to raise your drinking age to 21 in every, like if there's a state that does not do this, they would withhold the federal funding for like roads, because basically like, so essentially they put this pressure over states to raise the drinking age to 21 from like 18 or wherever it was at the time for most of them. And so what I'm saying is like even certain states now, like they raise the tobacco and nicotine age to like 21. So essentially they're not even setting like, so yes, they actually kind of do just like set the age of consent. They just say like, okay, it's 18, whatever. But then also like at the same time, they're saying, well, you can consent to sex at this point, but you can't necessarily consent to drinking alcohol, or you can't necessarily consent to, having nicotine. Like, so basically they raise it to 21. I can see that it being an issue. Like, I mean, yeah, that like, somebody may bring up like the whole slippery slope thing, but like the actual point is like, once a state is doing that sort of thing, it like kind of sets a precedent as far as whether they're going to change those rules or not. So essentially what you're seeing is like I guess the problem could be is that like they'll say, okay, now it's 18, but then like eventually they'll be like, you know what, we need to raise it to 21. And it's not even like really that egregious of like an argument, because it's like states do that. Like they do raise it like these ages. Like we've seen it with other things.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna get in shit. All right. Now, just because I'm talking about this does not mean I condone either action of it or whatever. But basically, I hear this a lot whenever I'm watching what was the word we gave for like not other podcasts?
Long form content and discussions.
Yeah, long-term content and discussions.
Long form.
Whatever that. And they always bring up the like concept of like an age gap in relationships, which I'm not going to touch on that actually. But then they always ask like, is 18 too young to be dating, I don't know, like a 30-year-old man or whatever? And whatever your thoughts on that, I'm not going to get into it because I really don't feel like touching on it right now. Pause. They would ask the panel, and the panel would be like, well, 18 is too young. You just out of high school. You don't know what you're talking about. This, that kind of shit. And then the question's always like, okay, well, would you raise the age? And then they're like, well, no, but. So then it's like, okay, what's the point? And then the thing is, if you raise the age, then you'll just be saying the same shit like a few years later. Like if you raise it to like 21, for example, then people are like, oh, they're just 21. They just got into the age. And it's like, oh, well, we should raise it to 24. Oh,
she was 20 years. She was 20 years, 364 days, 23 hours and 59 minutes old. You sick fuck.
But like, that's the issue with like this kind of age thing. If you keep like, I mean, shit, I don't know how deep you want to go on this, but like the number, especially on like alcohol and stuff like that, it's not really a set number. It's kind of arbitrary.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that about the other game.
It's not
the
even
other
like,
thing,
it's not even 21 in Europe.
I think it's like 16 or 14.
Yeah, something like that. But the thing is, it's like obviously it's not literally a like, that the Europeans somehow have a more like, ability to psychologically develop before the people here. And it's not, literally
yes,
that.
They're right,
of
guys.
Of course. And it's not because like, the state sets it that like somehow that magically makes people able to acknowledge that this is the case at this point, like that they can, handle their liquor or whatever, it's literally just like, I mean, incentives having to do with like governments and all that. But, the point being there is like, at least here, like there was the whole scheme of like, the raising of the drinking age for that reason and whatever. I don't know exactly what other motives were behind it necessarily. I'd probably have to look more into it, but
it's because like the US has a much more aggressive Protestant culture than a lot of Europe.
But the point being is sort of like, they just set a number and they're kind of like, okay, well, that must be the case, and so people take this to be some sort of truth that's like, oh, well, you must be 21 to drink alcohol. Like, it makes sense because that's when you're ready. It's like, well, why do you think that is? Like, that's just kind of what the government said. Like, it wasn't always that way. So, where people, it was fine when people could at 18 and did, but versus now where it's like, they're actually not ready anymore.
If it's such a moral outrage and it has to be 21, that's the real number, then why is literally every other ally we have domestically, or domestically, every other foreign ally we have in terms of military, in terms of trade, in terms of all that stuff. Why are we not just setting a red line because they all have lower ages for alcohol than us?
Yeah.
Is it really that big of an issue? Is it really that number? If it is, then I mean, it's kind of hypocritical to be like doing business with these people.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, they'd start saying like, oh, well, it's relative to their, governments. And
It's relative, is it?
Yeah, exactly. They'll start like flip flopping a bit on that, you can't get a consistent position out of these people because it's not a consistent belief.
Now, the question is, if I'm born in the US, right, and then I move to Germany, am I suddenly now able to like handle alcohol at a younger age now because I'm in the state, or is it because there's some genetic thing? Because then you can get into some real murky waters there.
The layers of ozone are actually slightly different in each place, and so it affects your ability to metabolize the alcohol. So it's actually it's an actual like height difference, like a sea level difference. So basically like in flat areas where it's not that high above sea level, actually well, if anything, it would make less sense, that you would be restricted from drinking there. You should actually be restricted from drinking in places with higher altitude, because that's when the alcohol actually hits more. So, if anything, if we're going to make it geographical, that would have to be the case.
It's just kind of stupid.
So you can't even, I mean, we're trying to figure out a way to justify something that's incoherent. I mean, that's just how it goes. Now we have fan mail. I forgot to play this clip. Basically it's from our show with Ignis. I believe that was our 2 episodes ago now. Is that
yeah,
I believe something like that. Anyway, at the time of recording, it's actually a newer one. We're a bit ahead of schedule here, but we're about to show this clip. I don't know. I think we may get muted when the clip's actually on or something. I don't know if I think you could just hit unmute and actually react to the clip while it's playing. But let's see.
Not on
Kendrick
in the stage.
Yeah, Kendrick's in the back.
Okay.
Whoa, what do you mean? He's in the back?
Children. Child.
I'm going
to assume you took a shot so that you'd laugh at the joke.
What makes it funnier is that he probably would write a song about that too.
No. I was gonna
I'm in the back. I'm in the back.
I'm in the back of the bus like I was Rosa Parks. They told me I got to sit there because the young nigga dark. Yeah, there it is. That was a highlight. Good, that was a highlight. It sounds like Kendrick too. You just had a verse that came out on Future's album. I wish we could play a little bit of it here, but I mean, maybe we can, maybe a short segment or something. Maybe we should just a few seconds here. You think?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll play. Maybe should I play it from like my phone speaker? You think that would help? Instead, just like put a short segment.
Are you not able to get it on YouTube or whatever?
Well, I'm just wondering if for the audio reasons, like, maybe it wouldn't flag us if I were to just play it from here.
I think if it's short enough, it wouldn't matter. Plus, we're 2 hours in, so.
Okay, we'll get a short segment from YouTube up right here. If only, copyright wasn't an issue here, but whatever. I don't even think it's as much on Twitch, is it? Like, because I see people reacting to music on there.
I don't know how Twitch runs their shit. And Twitch is a fucking cesspool. Unless
that is also true. You remember those like borderline naked ladies?
Well, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Twitch is a great platform for people to share their streaming activity, and we would very much like to be on Twitch.
We'd like to be partnered. Sign us on a deal. No, we would like a Rumble deal or like something like that. Maybe Kick. I don't know how good Kick is, but
I'll take any deal, to be honest.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm skipping to
the bus.
Okay, here we are. What happened? What's up?
What?
Did you laugh at something?
I'm still laughing at the Kendrick thing.
Oh, because I was getting the new Kendrick. I didn't know if you could hear it, like from something, maybe like how loud it was playing or something. But here it is. So. But you hear that? You hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. We need to skip a little bit because.
Who got 2 T's with me? I'm snatching chains and burning tattoos.
Okay.
It's up. Lost too many soldiers not to play.
I thought he does it a little bit. Maybe it's before.
Yeah, get up with time for him to prove that he's a problem. Niggas clicking up, but pay not be legit. No 40 water. Tell him. Yeah, get.
Yeah. He's just kind of moaning on that track. Oh, you know what I should have done? I should have played the guy that imitates the songs and makes it in his own voice. You know what I'm saying?
What? The entire damn album, but it's all acapella.
I think we could we just play that one a little bit more instead and not get copyrighted? Because let me see if it content IDs that one. Because if you see any sort of copyright thing pop up, before
give me some ganja.
You could just kind of say, well, we just got to skip to the other one. Hold up. So let me check his YouTube thing, see if it copyrights it. Oh, it does copyright it. Wow. It's just his voice and it copyrights it. That's unfortunate.
What the hell?
It's a cover. Let me just see if I can get to a better timestamp. Okay. Yeah. We got a better timestamp here for this one at least. So like that, but it's just my voice. All right, let's check this out. Okay, here we go.
Say it's a lot of goofies with a check. I hope them sentiments symbolic. My temperament bipolar, I choose violence. Okay, let's get it up. It's time for him to prove that he's a problem.
Can't pause it. Okay, there we go. It's pretty accurate to the song. You like that? It's called Like That. You like it?
No.
Why not? What's wrong with it?
I'll explain on another episode because that's yeah.
We need a whole nother episode to explain why you don't like that.
I mean, maybe. I'm just putting a topic ahead of time that we don't have to think about coming up with later, and now you're kind of ruining it.
Oh, whoops! I had my that was off for some reason. Somebody slid that down. Somebody slid my microphone, my sound effect panel. The volume on it was slid all the way to 0.
Oh.
Yeah, who would do that to me? So,
well,
here's something. Here's what we got. When I was at the club, my boy was like, we got to hit up these women. And so I was like, yeah, sure. Let me get loaded and we can do it. But, I was like, you just got to pick out a couple girls that you think we could both approach. And it's like, but yeah, he didn't even do that. Can you believe it? And then at the end of the night, he was all like, man, another night and no bitches. It's like, bro, it was on you. I told you, let's go find some, and whatever. It's whatever, man.
He says that like every time we go out.
I think he's a little too fixated on that being the prize of the night. Like, whereas, just being realistic, why wouldn't you just want to go out and have fun? I think he's a little too focused on that.
That's like a side quest, if anything.
Exactly. You shouldn't see that as the main quest. You're going to end up depressed. Like, how many guys do you think are going home with these girls?
Apparently all of them.
The ratio is too it's too different. It's too different. The guys outnumber the women by too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, whatever. That's his goal. It's just the first time we were there, he was seeing people like guys, like some of them get like Instagrams like right away. He's like, yo, I saw a guy get a girl's Instagram. And, he was making out with her. It's like, I don't know if you don't want to make out with them, meet him at a club and make out. I don't know about that. The night that you meet her, you can't even see her in broad daylight.
Yeah, well, the alcohol will get rid of the bad breath.
You don't know what kind of things she's encountered as far as anything that's been transmitted to her. Something you got to watch out for.
That is a fair point.
So you don't know. You could catch that. And so
you have had McDonald's.
What?
She could have had McDonald's.
McDonald's what?
I don't know, McNuggets.
What? You talking about what are you talking about here?
McDonald's.
I didn't know McDonald's. I didn't know McDonald's served waffles.
Don't they?
I thought they only had pancakes. They have waffles, but they served them a long time ago, so they're in the back and they're moldy. One could say they're blue. almost.
School jokes.
Do not look it up. Ego had a travesty where they created too many blueberry waffles and had to put them in a landfill in India, and it ended up molding and causing people to have disease. Do not look up blue waffle incident. Okay. Do not look up blue waffle videos.
There are videos of it.
I don't know. Was that like fake?
I don't know. I never looked it up. I was like, shit, yeah, I don't want to see that. That sounds gross.
I think somebody flashed a picture. I don't recall what it exactly looks like, but I suppose, I'm sure there's some sort of video out there. But to my knowledge, I believe it might actually, some of it, some of the information about them might have been fabricated.
100%.
So I
There's
don't know.
no way they made that many blueberry waffles.
Yeah, it's an exaggeration. How many blueberry waffles could you even make?
I mean,
if you have a few years to make them,
holy shit, 25?
25 what?
Drinking age.
Where?
I'm trying to see. I can't find the
if
color on the map.
If Ego has this many facilities in which they're making waffles.
Oh. It's like a region in India.
Blue waffle?
No, 25. But also that
Blue
probably.
waffle landfill. Well,
We're
no,
talking about like two different things now.
There's no more blue waffles there because they were able to exterminate all of the evidence of the blue waffles ever of existing, but they still tell you that the blue waffles exist.
So wait, what? I'm lost now.
It's because you were too focused on the India thing.
25 is crazy, bro.
So I think it's because Indians are mentally retarded.
It's literally like one and like kind of another one. It's like striped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like super far north. It's like on the border of Pakistan. So that's probably why.
Pakistan.
Although Pakistan doesn't have it, like, it's not illegal there, apparently.
You're a very bad man, Jetty.
Very bad man. Yeah.
So here's one for you. Here's something.
This is gonna be like a regular thing now.
What?
If this is what I think it is, that.
No, it's not that. It's just, a story. It's just like, real life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's nothing big, nothing crazy. So here's that. Basically, I don't know which one to go on. I was kind of thinking of a couple different instances that I could talk about here. No, so recent. This might be actually more interesting, more relevant to my story, honestly. So there had been this girl that I was like looking at, on an app, and then I found her like Instagram through that, right? So I started talking to her a little bit, but things kind of didn't go that far after the first day, so I was kind of like, oh, whatever. Kind of forgot about it a little bit, but then like she posted something, and I swiped up on it, and I started talking a little bit, and she was actually seeing.
You were talking on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
She seemed a little into it, it's like, obviously. So I'm like, oh, I was trying to get her to like, meet up, so I was kind of like, hey, you want to go here? And then basically kind of like she was asking a little bit more about it, because obviously we hadn't talked too much, but, no reply eventually. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, whatever. But then I was drinking, right? And so I was kind of like to my boy, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just hit her up right now. Because obviously when you're drinking, it's like you get no, not call, just a text. And so basically
it's the same kind of thing though.
So, if anything, it wasn't like some sort of like desperate thing, it was just kind of like a funny text. So it was like, basically telling her I wanted to, go to this restaurant, whatever. So I'm like, you not rocking with this restaurant? And then it's like the fucking red exclamation point question mark. Like emoji, you know what I'm talking about? Whenever those, those like rap accounts, it's like y'all not rocking with like this album, and then they put like the exclamation point and the like the question mark, the Apple emoji, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it on the screen for the folks. Let me see if I could get red exclamation question mark emoji up here. Well, we need question mark and emoji, or question mark and exclamation. Let's see. Oh, okay. Exclamation question, whatever. Okay. Well, it's not how about I look up a meme about it, because it's not really showing as good as I want it to. Just here, but it's very funny the way I asked that, because I was just like, fuck it, it's like I just want to ask this stupid question right now. Hold on, I can get this in a new tab. Okay, interesting. Okay, here we go. So basically, if I can get this up here right now.
To catch that.
If I can get this up here right now.
Okay.
You're not rocking with this restaurant, and then it's like that emoji. And so basically, she started saying like, oh, it's not that or anything. I think she was saying like what day and whatever, but then like I started telling her about it, but she's like, oh, I got this thing, and then but then she's like, oh, well, it's not really about like it's not that I don't want to go or anything, but we should probably like talk a little more. I want to get comfy when I'm like talking with people. It's like, it's nothing. Yeah, and then we kept like texting a little bit. She was like immediate response, bro. So I don't know. I mean, I think there might be something there, but the problem is kind of like, I'm not sure what to say at this point. It's like sometimes it gets to the point where you're kind of like, well, what now? We just kind of like, stumped on this one.
You send her shit. Wait, hold on. Give me a number here.
Number. Let me review the literature, the scripture here.
A reading from the word of Instagram.
I haven't seen like, okay, so the photos are not like as in depth as one would like, want to get a full understanding of appearance, you know what I'm saying? And so like but it's not like, she does look good in what I can see. So I'm just saying it's like it's good.
I don't know. Well, I know why they do it. I don't know why you make your pictures so that you can barely tell what you look like. This is just bad advertising.
But she's not obese.
I mean,
and she's not ugly either. I mean, she look like, from what I can see, from what is not obscured.
Here's the thing. I reject that as being a positive. We need to go back to like 1950s standards.
Yeah.
If you're obese, hold on. Let me rephrase that before I go on that. Let me just remove that entirely. I'm just not going to go on down that path. You start the ranking starts with acceptable BMI. Anyone out? Well, BMI is kind of probably retarded anyway, but you know what I mean.
Acceptable body shape and body fat.
Exactly.
Image.
If you're obese, you're not even on the scale.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are, but it broke.
You should be on the scale. You should take a look at the scale and think about your life.
It doesn't give you a number because it just can't tell at that point. You've caused it to break.
You go into Publix, so you just get on the scale, and then it's just like a big red alarm, and
you get the lunk alarm.
Yeah.
As soon as you step on Planet Fitness.
Sorry, we don't have enough money to insure these machines. So
you can't even fit on the Stairmaster. It's like you're too wide.
Fitness? You can't even fit on the Stairmaster.
Can't even fit in this gym.
But so what was the number you gave?
Well, I didn't give a number. I'm saying based on my obscured vision, I was saying it was good, but I wasn't saying I wasn't giving a top rating here. I was just kind of saying, it's it's not bad. It's good. It's good.
You should have a number.
Okay. Well, I need a better visual here. Look, how about I formulate something for you here.
Actually, just do you have the account?
I'm trying to. Well, see, the problem is you don't get that good of a view. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but if you're saying she probably looks good, there's probably something to go off of.
Yeah. Well, anyway, point being, what is your take here on this?
I was gonna base it based on whether or not she was hot or not.
Bruh. Okay, so what? Give me your two-sided opinion here then.
Okay. I was gonna. Yeah, this doesn't work if you're not the other guy. But basically, how to reignite the conversation? I say, shit. Yeah, that might be TOS if I say that. Actually.
Really?
All right. Let me phrase it in a way where it won't be TOS.
Oh my
Send
God.
her your best, emphasis on best, if you catch my drift, meme, and see what the reaction is.
So you're saying start it off with a meme, come back with a meme.
Well, it's a certain kind of meme. It's not like emphasis on best.
Best.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's a little bit of a unclear picture here.
All right, hold on. Let me type it.
It's most racist, right?
No.
Yeah, well, I kind of considered that it was a possibility there. Now, that you think that's going to work? You think that would be good? Why would that? Why that's too out there? You don't think?
No, hold on. Here, listen. It's a way to start a conversation, and you get the info that you need right off the bat based on the reaction. So it's not just reigniting the conversation, it's also a filter.
You think there's something else I could use? That maybe would test these same waters without necessarily just like
same
dunking
waters.
Well, I'm just saying, these waters are kind of broad. You know what I'm saying? But like,
well, you're sending it to a broad.
This same ocean without dumping a bowling ball into it, or I guess not even a bowling ball, like a cannonball.
You want to like skip rocks across the lake,
right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So maybe it should be a little racist or something.
Yeah, but that's less of a concern, to be honest. Yeah. At least for me.
Okay, so maybe it should be a little sexist or something. You think that one's good?
Yeah, that's actually
okay.
That's a good middle ground.
Okay. You remember that? What was that? Like Dr. Phil when he was on that podcast? Was he on Joe Rogan?
You're ugly. You're stupid. You're a piece of shit.
No. It's like
likes. Oh,
he's like, you came with I forgot what it was. Like he came with what was it? Let me look up the video.
I heard that guy doesn't even have a doctor's degree.
I mean, he's Dr. Phil, bro.
Can you call yourself doctor like that if you don't have the credentials?
I don't know. I can't find the exact clip I'm looking for. But it was like that one where it's like, I got a few statistics I might pull up. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
You're going to send... wait, that could go either way. That could go back to what we were talking about. Depending on the statistic.
Oh, I see. Well, I don't know. You think it's best to test these waters with these sorts of things? You think that's actually the best thing to use?
I think it's best to do that in person, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Really that's not the way to... It is hilarious, but, I just don't know that it's...
I would have such a good laugh if I did that.
Me too. And so, is it fumbling to do that? That's the question.
Well, it depends on whether or not you care about, getting into the end zone or not.
Well, what I'm saying is, would it be a fumble? You think it would be a guaranteed fumble if I did it right now? Or maybe.
Not a guaranteed fumble.
Not guaranteed.
Wait, which one?
Likely fumble?
Skipping the rocks or dropping the bowling ball?
No, dropping the bowling ball.
No, I think that's a hard fumble.
That's a hard fumble. You say?
That's a hard fumble. Unless
maybe I should just bring up the tunnels.
Unless, wow, there goes our.
Well, you could just censor that if you want. You could cut that out.
I mean, nah.
You could make a digging, like a miner sound, like is there some sort of like the miner in Clash of Clans or Clash Royale? I mean,
yeah, you got your games messed up.
Yeah, but you make that like the sound effect of the character. You just put that in instead because it thinks you think of like digging underground. You know what I'm saying?
Diggy hole.
Yeah, put something like that. Put something like that over.
That would actually be pretty funny.
See, there you go. Or you could just do the first note of like you know what I'm talking about, right? The techno remix.
Oh yeah.
Just the first note of it. Duh. Or two notes maybe, but that's it. That's it. No more. Dun, dun. That's it. I want to see Kanye sing that.
There's no words, I don't think.
No, just like sing the melody to it.
Oh,
like just like
they did it on that one podcast with Well,
You mean the
a
show
lot,
he did
actually.
with like Tucker, right? He's like,
No,
la,
I mean, not
la,
Kanye.
la, la. Wait till I get my money right.
The other podcast. Shit. I mean, the other long form discussion.
Other podcast. It's not real.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
What are you talking about?
It doesn't matter anymore. Anyway, if you want to just start the conversation, I just say offer free food.
I did. That's the thing. I did.
Did you say explicitly that you were paying for it?
Well, it wasn't clear at first, but eventually I did. But then she still wanted to talk a little bit more beforehand.
Take her to tacos.
No, I don't. What? Tacos.
It's cheap.
I don't want tacos. You think I want that vegetable oil fried tortilla?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that.
I can't have fast food.
I actually don't know what that's from.
What?
Is that a reference?
No.
Oh.
I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay, never mind.
You know, honestly, it's a reference to this show. The show made it a reference, you know? Anything we say on the show becomes a reference.
I will say, though, I had a Shamrock McFlurry. So much better than the regular McFlurry.
When the fuck was this? It's like over, right?
No, it was like last week.
I forgot St. Patrick's Day was even a thing.
I did too. I didn't even notice it.
But then I saw a meme like yesterday where it's like this fat guy that looks like queso and somebody pinches him in a Walmart and then he takes off it. He's like, "Why did you pinch me?" It's like really loud and everybody's like looking over. He's like, "I'm wearing green." And he takes it off. It's like one of those like cut tube tops. You know what I mean? And so, and I even saw like some guy in the comments say, "Hey, that's me." And it's like the guy in the background actually did look like him. There was this one guy laughing about it. That's pretty funny. You know, imagine seeing yourself on one of these things. Cause I actually saw a guy that was interviewing like one girl, you know, like those street interviews. I saw one of those take place.
Yeah, and it was in the area that we go to.
I saw one of those take place and like he was asking her some shit, you know, I mean, obviously it was like a black guy, but you know, he was asking her about that. They have like a camera set up, everything. Like it was not even a phone. It was like a professional camera.
Dude, he's going to get robbed.
I know. That's what I was thinking too.
That is not a good area.
We're pretty close to some cops. I mean, I don't know that the cops are going to do much, you know, other than just, you know, you know, how in like that South Park episode,
Officer Barbrady.
Yeah, but you know, in that South Park episode, like with the one with like Michael Jackson and like Tupac, and they're like, so anyway, there's a black guy who walked into the police station. And they're like, "Oh yeah," they're just waiting for the joke.
I gotta rewatch some of those.
Yeah.
All right. So do you want to? Is there anything more to go off of that? I don't really know what else to tell you. Free food usually works.
Oh, I thought okay. I don't know. You know, that's it. That's it's really just up to. I got another friend telling me I should just ask to call because that always works. You know, you get more comfortable with that.
I'd say a FaceTime or something like that would be better. No.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm just saying. It's like, you know, video call. But then what if you run out of things to say? It might be dry. You got to have like topics prepared. It's got to be like a show, dude. You got to make it your own. It's not really a podcast. You got to make it a long form conversation.
Well, it can't be a podcast.
Well, you know, since we are, I mean, are we the podcasters too? Cause like, what is it? I mean, everybody's a podcaster that watches this show. What are we?
You know what you should do? You should send her an episode of the podcast ever.
Yeah. I'll plug the show. Be like, "Hey, what do you think of this?"
I was really tempted to like throw that in that one server we were talking about. Because she was like, I'm on a bus or something like that. Give me a podcast to listen to. And I was like, no, I don't know. Something like that.
I'm on a bus. That was funny.
All right. Wait, hold on. About.com.
About.com. Yeah.
All right, I guess that's it, right?
Those memes got too gay. Like there was a point where it was kind of funny, but then they started putting too much of it in there, and then it was like just kind of gross.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hell no, dude! What the fuck are you guys on?"
Hell no.
Yeah, exactly. There's only a certain point to where that's funny, but once you start seeing like the fluids and all that, like in the
what?
yeah, there were some where you could see it. You couldn't see like the actual, like, you know, anything else other than that. But, you know, they would leave some of the shot in and I'd be like, what the, you know, I'm just like, what is wrong with these people? They have to watch that stuff to make the memes. They have to view that uncensored to make all these memes. So it's like, you know, I'd understand if it was the same clip over and over. There was probably one gay guy that just like edited it the first time. And then like everybody else is just using the same clip after to be funny. But no, it's like, these are different clips of of like that, you know, show, that display. There's like various like, you know, segments of it. So it's kind of like, you know, people actually have to source the content as well. Like they have to actually look through the videos and wait for like these moments. And you know, honestly, where are you getting it? Like are you paying for it to get it? Because I don't think necessarily that it's just free, is it? It usually isn't when people are doing that kind of stuff. You know, they make paywalls. So you're telling me you got all this content for free, but also, you know, you're telling me you didn't sit through and edit that. You're telling me you didn't wait for that man to fucking unload his like fucking, you know, ropes. And you're fucking telling me here that you didn't do all that just to put out this fucking stupid meme that gets some laughs and some likes. Like the shit people do for clout. Jeez.
I don't even think you can get monetized on Instagram anymore.
So they're doing it for free, just for clout, solely for clout.
Yeah,
and not even that. You might get one video that gets like 100,000 likes, and then the rest of your videos get a couple thousand after that. And so you're telling me you did all that just for that? I don't know if I'd do. I wouldn't want to watch that just to do that.
I wouldn't want to watch it at all.
I mean, if you could get $10 million from watching it, would you?
I don't think I would.
You wouldn't watch it for 10. Like you wouldn't watch one video for $10 million.
I don't think I would.
It's 10 million. How about like how about 100 million?
I'd really just rather not.
So not even 100 million could get you to watch that video?
I don't think I could, no.
Not for 100 million. What about $1 billion? $1 billion.
We're talking like the full video or like what?
Yeah, you got to watch a full video.
No.
$1 billion. $1 billion.
Nope.
You wouldn't watch it for $1 billion. You know, let's get the podcasters to comment. Would you guys do it for $1 billion? Would you watch that you know, Dreamy Bull, whatever he does? I forgot. I don't even know the names of these things, but would you watch a full Dreamy Bull video? I don't even know how long they are. Maybe they're a minute, maybe they're 5 minutes, maybe they're half hour. I don't know. You know, he's edging or something like that. So, you know, basically, would you guys watch this for $1 billion? Would you? Because it's not even like you got to touch them, you know, because people usually have those questions about where would you like kiss a guy for a fucking, you know, $1,000 or fucking like 100,000 or something like that. You know, yeah, that's usually the question, you know, or like the fucking gay sex ones, you know, it's not even, would you just watch, you know, like online, not even like in fucking person. Would you watch a video? You know what I'm saying? So this is pretty tame compared to the other hypotheticals.
All right, that's it for this episode.
If you guys want more, we'll be back next week.
Yeah. I thought you were going to keep going.
Nope. We'll see you guys next time on the podcast.
The podcast ever.
The podcast ever.